Unseen for generations, a DYAD in the force.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of DYAD in the Force, episode 226, I think, or 27. It's probably 226.
It's something.
Yeah, the title of this episode is Stop Blaming the Jedi. Now, I already see some messages from Craig McGuinn in the chat. We're going to address that really quickly. Not like really quickly, but we're going to address that soon. Choco, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Just plugging away. 4th of July, wife is off of work, having to prep some stuff because she's going to have surgery pretty soon. But doing the thing. Playing a lot of Dune Awakening. It's fantastic.
I did download that, but I'm just grinding at One Piece. Like I started playing Forbidden West, and you know I got pretty deep into that, and then once I got into the grind of One Piece, like I left it in the dust. So I'm gonna have to catch up with my game library when I get to episode 5,000. But there's someone down there, Choco.
Yes. Well, welcome our fantastic guest. If you want to start by saying who you are, where people can find you, and what you talk about.
Hi there. My name is Alex. I go by Alex Let's Yo. Very original. It took me a long time to come up with that screen name. I'm primarily on TikTok. I do have a YouTube and Instagram account, but I am terrible at keeping up with those. So I'd say check on TikTok for everything I post. And I talk about general nerd content, but mostly Star Wars. Occasionally I dip into, I do some Invincible stuff, some Marvel, a little bit of Persona coming up, but primarily not into Star Wars. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the reasons I've been following you since you started, or I don't know, for a while, and I was so happy to see someone else who talks about Legends and who loves the expanded universe, for what it is, and not as a versus something else. You know what I mean? Like that made me truly happy.
I'm glad, and I'm 100% with you. I love the EU and I love the new canon, and I don't like. It's such a Star Wars fan thing that we need to pit them against each other, and one needs to be better and the other is trash or non-canon or fake. It's like,
that's bad because this is good, and I'm like,
exactly.
Bro, I can like hamburgers and tacos. They don't have to fight. Like they're different.
Yeah, and these are really just two slightly different hamburgers. Like there's so much in common.
Yeah, I mean,
what were you saying about Timothy Zahn?
Oh, just like Timothy Zahn didn't become a worse writer after 2014. He wrote so many books on both sides of the canon Legends debate, like saying that one half is good and one half is bad. Like they're all good. He's a fantastic author.
Yeah, Absolutely. They're just different stories, just like EU and canon.
It's exactly.
I struggled through Greater Good though.
Yeah, that was the one of the. It's funny. He has an issue with outside of the original Thrawn trilogy. The middle of the trilogy is always a little bit shakier for him. I wasn't crazy about Alliances. Greater Good was a little weak, but the third ones are always fantastic. He knows how to stick the landing.
But you know how Star Wars is, there's some hits and there's some misses. That goes with the books as well. They can't. When you produce as many stuff as Star Wars does, you're not always going to strike gold.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my theory is if you have 0 misses, that means that you haven't swung enough. You know what I mean? Like you're not batting right. You gotta go for it.
Does anybody bat 1,000?
I think in Star Wars, I don't think so. I'm trying to think.
I mean, even the pop culture phenomenon of Game of Thrones just kind of like swung and missed at the final season, right? So you can't even say that much.
You miss every shot you don't take.
Absolutely.
Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott.
Can I ask real quick? Do you guys hear as loud as I do? I've got some fireworks outside, people celebrating.
No.
No, perfect. I can never tell like how good this mic is, so I'm always terrified. Like, if I brush the cable, it's gonna screech and tear out the speakers. So I'm glad that. I'm picking that up.
It's always a mixed bag. Like for me, mine won't grab anything low, but anything high. So like stuff inside of my room will be quiet, but like
Suki.
A neighbor kid over there saying something is like cuts through everything.
I had something to say, but I lost my thought. Shout out to everybody in the chat on the TikTok and the YouTube side. We have Darth Angel who said, "Quiet everyone, my show is on." Thank you, Darth Angel. Andy Wise Guy, what's going on? Shout out to Andy Wise Guy.
Yo, how you doing?
Podwans was also in here for a brief moment, I think. He said hello there. And then we have the Josh, my faves in a trio. Appreciate you.
DYAD in the Force.
That is already a podcast. Guardians trilogy might be the closest thing to all bangers.
It's pretty solid. I absolutely adore the Guardians movies. They're perfectly up my alley. So I'm with you. I absolutely think.
It depends. If you say all bangers, then I would have to disagree. But they're all good movies. But they don't all kind of
that sizzle.
Banger. It depends on the definition.
For me, if we're talking Marvel, it's got to be the first 3 Cap movies.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But again, when you talk about like the context of MCU, you got to take it or leave it. You can't be like, well, the MCU is all good because the first 3 Caps are great. No, just like,
True.
There's
That's
some misses in there.
A lot more diverse stuff in there. I remember.
Well, can we all agree that that you have A, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and B, How to Train Your Dragon as top tier, no all hits, no misses, all killer, no filler.
I only saw the first 2 How to Train Your Dragons, but I'm absolutely with you on those 2. Both fantastic. I feel like Lord of the Rings may be bogged down by The Hobbit though. Like the original trilogy, immaculate. Genuinely probably the best trilogy of all time, which I know is sacrilege coming from a Star Wars guy.
Not at all. I haven't seen the Hobbit movies yet, actually, so we'll do that someday.
Yeah. Or if you get around to it.
I honestly,
maybe watch One Piece first.
They're Lord of the Rings, but I feel like the Hobbit tells a much different story. So I mean, like, I love it all, to be honest. And it really depends on because there are some, and I'm not calling you this one, to be honest. I'm saying there are some fans out there that were Lord of the Rings fans off of the movies alone and then saw The Hobbit and expected that to be another Lord of the Rings and were disappointed,
Yeah, I could definitely see that being an issue. I'll say I had a very weird introduction. I saw the 3 Hobbit movies before I ever saw any of the Lord of the Rings. So I did do it in reverse. But I think because there was also several years gap between them. I saw the Hobbit movies in theaters, and then I only saw Lord of the Rings very late in life. I was, I think, out of college by the time I first watched them. Because it always seemed like, it's just typical fantasy. It's the generic. I never really thought I was going to be getting into much, and then I finally watched them and was like, oh, these are the greatest movies ever made. Okay. But yeah, I think I was a little bit sour on watching them too because I was like, well, I saw The Hobbit and those were all right. So
that's interesting. That's like watching the prequels first.
Yeah, and it's why I often say don't do that.
Well, I mean, no, because so chronologically,
depends what the people are into,
I do get it. And it's funny. I was just thinking I posted a video today with POV, you're this, and it's me attacking with my lightsaber. The one thing I considered for the POV was you're watching the prequels before the originals on a lineup, but I think there's a fair approach to both. I definitely get, especially if you've already seen it, watching them in order. There's a lot of charm to seeing it happen as is.
Yeah. But it does make sense though, because The Hobbit came before Fellowship of the Ring, chronologically in publishing.
That's the thing. They're prequel movies, but the book is just a predecessor. It's not a prequel at all.
Yeah. But then in the movie universe, or I should say on-screen universe, we're just gonna keep going backwards, I suppose.
That's true.
That's the thing is I did read The Hobbit. I read it in school ages and ages ago.
That's pretty cool.
People are getting started in the in the chat based on the title of this episode. So I mean, let's do our mixer really quickly. What do we got going on? I just finished Ironheart. I really enjoyed it. I think that was a great show. I found one inconsistency.
Ooh.
This is nitpicky.
What do you got?
This is nitpicky. It falls under the realm of suspension of disbelief, but you know how, I mean, and spoilers if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to really spoil it, but like when she's testing the clothing and nothing works, how did she tear off a piece? Right? If acid doesn't break it down, if a bomb in a controlled chamber doesn't hurt it, how does the laser cut it off?
Well, I mean, that is something that she did briefly mention, that she cut it, but it didn't damage it. It just separated, so it was like its own little cloth. But I can't remember exactly how it was worded, but it was a little strange.
Yeah, that
I'll have to find it.
I chalked that down to like suspension of disbelief. Like, yeah, it has to happen. She needs to get the cloth, but I thought that was pretty funny. I was like, how do you damage it enough to tear it? Like it was like just going off of your context alone. Like she cut a piece off but didn't damage it. How do you cut off a piece of anything without damaging it? Is it perforated?
I'm imagining those, like, you know, the magnet balls that like you can make into a sheet.
Exactly.
And, like, yeah, you separate them.
That's how they separate.
Gotcha. Other than that, it was a good show. I'm trying to watch the Zelma Stanton show, to be honest. It's the sleeper hit that came out of nowhere. I didn't know that character existed, and once I saw her in the show, I was like, what's she about?
Hello there.
Because like, is she supposed to be like in the vein of like Ironheart, which is not to say that she is Tony's replacement, but in the vein of Ironheart being sort of that legacy character, is Zelma kind of like gonna be the next like chaos magic person? I mean, not a replacement for Scarlet Witch, but like the next person in the youth that can do it.
It's open.
I mean, there wasn't anything about her that's connected to like the chaotic side, but I could see her as being a stand-in but street level version of Wong. So
okay.
like when you got questions, you go talk to her. Like I can definitely see that. But yeah, no, the show was good. Her last Ironheart suit was sick as hell. Like it looked fantastic. I was really digging it.
Yeah, when that one part happened, and you'll know after I say it because I'm not trying to spoil it. That when that one part happened, I was like, "That's all we get of it." And then it was like, "Oh, bamboozle," you know. Yeah, you got me. What else? Choco, you wanted to talk about something?
Yeah, I mean, something that was kind of making the rounds online. I've been kind of disconnected from the internet at large just because I wanted to enjoy like Ironheart and all this stuff, and I knew what the conversations would be. But there was a lot of people talking about a clip that surfaced, and it was our girl Tatiana Maslany and her playing Leia. And so for those of you who don't know, in Los Angeles, there's a group, they get actors and stuff, and the proceeds go to charity, and they sell, tickets. And you have different actors, and they are going through the entire Star Wars filmography. And so the most recent one was A New Hope, but they went through all of the prequels. And in this, production, Tatiana Maslany is Leia and does a phenomenal job. And I was like, you know what? Could we get someone like her as Leia? That's not something that's ever tossed in, but I feel like she understands the character as well as the metatextual commentary on the character, and I just love her.
Also, our good friend, our good friends, Orc, Font, and Xanthi are part of the production as well. And you can catch Xanthi on Star Wars Minute, at Star Wars Music Minute, sorry. And at Orc Font on Twix, if you guys want to follow that project.
And in the video, you see Xanthi playing her violin, but they take care of the music for it and do an excellent job.
That stuff is, I mean, I watched a couple of the shows. They're fantastic. Vivian Lyra Blair plays, I forget who she plays, but she's in the production. And they always have fun with it too. It's not like this kind of like serious table read. It's kind of like riff tracks, but like there's some ad libs in there. For sure.
I was gonna say, there's a lot of ad libbing. I remember Leia. I only ever saw clips of the New Hope one because Tatiana was so good in it. I saw clips of "Help Me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, You're My Only Hope" transforming into like a strip tease for Luke. He's like, "Hold on, R2, play that again. How do we get that back?" Which, yes, very funny show. I think she would be a lot of fun as Leia. I'd love if they bring back Richard Kind as Vader in something. He was fantastic.
He was fantastic as Vader.
What a surprise.
The production's really, really fun. You guys should check it out. What is it called again, Choco?
I don't know. I can't recall the name of it. We had we had Xanthi on here to talk about it, and we had the poster we showed. I don't know if you still have that file, but we will definitely, get them back on and talk about it more, especially because I got to see Empire. I got to be there live for that.
This one is called McClunky Treasure Island: A Live Stage Reading.
That's what it is. Yeah.
I remember reading that.
The prequel readings were a different name that I remember. But anyways, you can check it out. You can search it out on YouTube. It's on there. They have the full productions available. What else is in the news? Jeez, I'm almost hesitant to talk about this because I'm kind of verklempt at this. Street Fighter is getting another live action adaptation, and I'm just gonna say it might be bad. I never, so off rip, I never judge something based on the cast and without ever seeing it, right? So I'm not one of those people that's gonna hate it before I even see it. But thank you for the subscription, Jaden Core. But looking at this cast, I feel like they're doing another circus show.
Yeah, I remember seeing Jason Momoa is going to be Blanca, right?
No, Jason Momoa is supposed to be Akuma.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm misremembering because I only saw the one frame. But maybe it's just because I just watched the Minecraft movie a few days ago. But that immediately was like, It's not that I don't like Jason Momoa, but I feel like this is another. Was he cast because he's good in the role or because people like Jason Momoa?
Exactly.
I just don't want Akuma
sell
going,
tickets, but
all right. Okay.
Listen, it gives me shades of the last one, Legend of Chun-Li, where who was Vega was the Filipino guy from Black Eyed Peas, and it was just weird, Kristen Crook was Chun-Li.
She's half Asian.
Yeah, but like I know.
You don't get a half Asian to play a very Chinese Chun-Li. Like, she's very Chinese.
It's always been that way, but at least Jean-Claude as Guile is iconic in its own way.
Yeah.
Well, his accent doesn't scream like America like you would anticipate. But
Well,
there's all sorts of
here's-
people in the military.
Here's the thing. So Andrew Koji is playing Ryu. Okay, he's Japanese, which is fine. I forget the show that he's on, but it's on HBO. Warrior. Sorry, that's not HBO. That's Netflix, isn't it? Warrior.
I want to say that's Max.
Oh, Max. Correct. Good casting there. He definitely a fighter. He's not going to imitate any kind of martial arts.
profit.
Roger Adams super shattered 6.77 credits. Jason Momoa is the Conan. Accurate to the source. I live, I love, I slay, and I am content. I fracking love that movie. Looking forward to Red Sonja.
Hey, thank you for the 5 pounds, Illy. I will say you are entitled to that opinion. I still think Arnold Schwarzenegger is Conan, but I think Jason Momoa did a good job. I just don't like the movie. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, someone can do a great job, but
the movie.
they're
wasn't-
elevating the movie as much as they can, but they're bogged down by
Very-
other things.
Very
I am
Henry
looking forward to
Cavill.
Red Sonja too. Not two. Also. Let's see. Noah Centineo is playing Ken.
Right? Isn't he like?
He's
I meant to look him up as soon as I saw him. I remember he was like a YouTuber, like a vlogger, wasn't he?
No, he's
internet boy?
in The Recruit. The most recent show from Netflix, The Recruit. He's also been to All the Boys I've Loved. He's got some credits for sure.
Okay.
As long as they dye his hair blonde, it'll match because Ken has brunette eyebrows and then blonde hair. So it'll hopefully they better not dye his hair blonde and his eyebrows and everything else. Like he needs to have the brunette eyebrows because that's just how Ken is. They have Kalina Liang as Chun-Li.
I actually
Chinese.
did enjoy his character in Black Adam. Like that's another case where I didn't really like the movie Black Adam, but there was a really interesting Justice Society movie inside of a weird Black Adam film. For me.
Craig says, "Is there a reason the automated super chat comment reading voice sounds like Halen Mirren?" No, that wasn't the intent. That's SH4T, our droid.
Yeah, that's our droid.
Why
So
would it
Kal-
not sound like Helen Mirren? That's the default. Everything
so-
else is a choice.
Kalina Liang is Chun-Li, and she's Chinese. They have David Desmalkian as Bison.
Who's he? Oh, interesting. Because that's another one where, like, it's not that he's good in it, and it's not that it's a good movie, but Raul Julia's Bison is iconic in itself. So it's heavy shoes, but I do love David Desmalkian, so
Yeah.
that's kind of the most interesting one I've heard so far. I'm interested to see.
The thing is,
Simple
I'm
Bison.
not criticizing the cast except for a few. I'm criticizing the fact that it's a circus show, and I'll elaborate. Cody Rhodes is playing Guile of WWE. Now I don't know the acting chops of Cody, and Guile doesn't necessarily need to have quite the emotional range of anyone really. Guile is Guile. Sonic Boom. But he is a colonel, so. Oh, I guess it does say Jason Momoa was playing Blanca. Where did I read Akuma?
Oh yeah, I feel like he's
You know what? I actually see him as Blanca.
it's kind of the same as like they put him in as Lobo in the new DC universe, and that's kind of like okay, I can see it.
Okay. I can see Blanca doing all right. All right. Yeah, I guess it makes sense.
Okay, is it correct that who's 50 Cent playing?
Balrog or Boxer.
Right. forgot I read about that too.
And Andrew Schultz as Dan.
I mean, he's a parody character anyway. I don't really care.
Yeah.
Roman Reigns is playing Akuma. Okay, well, I'll have to see how it all shakes up in terms of how this cast plays the characters. But here's my initial concern about it: is that you have to find the story and tell that story, right? You don't cast the roster of the video game. Like Assassin's Fist, the independent movie that they did with Ryu, Ken, and their master and Okuma, that was a story that was narratively, it made sense for those characters to be there. And so with them casting so many of the fighters in the roster, my concern is that it becomes a convoluted tournament movie, or it becomes a Mortal Kombat good versus evil ensemble movie, and there's no protagonist. There's a protagonist, but there's no protagonist. Do you know what I mean? Like in Assassin's Fist, Ryu and Ken were training, and then they were learning the history of Ansatsuken, and then they learned about Akuma and their master's history. That was the story. They were the protagonists. And I don't know if I can see a narrative here where there's a clear protagonist. Because first of all, there's Bison and Akuma. Who's the antagonist now? You know?
Yeah.
Should be
That's always the risk with like big ensembles like these, you know. I feel like even some of the like later Avengers movies, it feels like so much of it is just how can we give some scenes to every character and make them shine, and it's less like, do we have an actual movie on our hands?
Exactly. Like, are they, again, just like you said, are they selling a story, or are they selling us like, hey, look, these are clips like the video game?
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see.
They had the chance. They had the chance with Legend of Chun-Li, right? Because that was about Chun-Li. It was a story about her. And I would have liked it, even as campy as it could have been, to have shown Bison's Tuesday. That story. But I don't know. They tried to do something Fast and Furious with that movie, and it just didn't work. It's like, you have to tell the legend of Chun-Li and how she became Chun-Li. Like, I don't know. It goes along with like the Resident Evils not being about Umbrella, and well, it was about Umbrella in the movies, but it's not about like the stars and their investigation. If you guys in the chat have played Resident Evil, it was about Alice and like the super soldier that they were creating with the virus, and like it was a complete departure from Resident Evil lore. And like they tried to bring it back with the third one. It was called Apocalypse, and they did like an actual live adaptation of Nemesis intro full motion video from the game, but then it fell apart afterwards. And I just want an entire movie in the Spencer Mansion, which is like a huge chunk of RE lore. But I digress. I don't know if anybody in the chat or even on the panel is RE heads, but
I am not. Haven't played a single game. So.
I believe there's a gentleman named Leon in there, right?
He comes in the second one. I mean,
some girl you put in a dumpster.
That's not what I meant. He stars in the second one. But essentially, I'm gonna give you an elevator pitch. It's gonna be like 30 seconds. So, a STARS unit, Special Tactics and Rescue unit of the Raccoon City Police Department. Raccoon City is the setting in which the game takes place. They are investigating disappearances. And the first unit, the Bravo team, went in to investigate, and they lost contact. So they sent in the Alpha team, which is the characters you play in the first one. They investigate. They get attacked in the woods during their investigation, and then driven into the Spencer Mansion, and that is where the entire game takes place. And this mansion turns out to be a huge facility for Umbrella. and I want it to have all of the makings of the game naturally, right? Because in the game you're solving these puzzles and you are getting keys to unlock doors, but you're also reading in-game lore through like notes and letters of people be like, who designed this mansion, and like, why is there all of these puzzles and stuff. And so there is in-universe explanation for why a mansion exists where you have to solve puzzles. And so they can do that. Like the architect designed the mansion to hide secrets, and so you have an entire movie based around this unit from Stars trying to figure out who's behind all of these disappearances, where did all these zombies come from. They find out it's Umbrella through traversing this mansion and solving these puzzles. They don't have to do it, beat for beat like in the game, but just like in Last of Us, you harken back to some of the iconic moments where you're solving these puzzles in the mansion.
Yeah, I mean, it'll certainly be interesting, but like you said, solving puzzles is a lot of fun. Watching people solve puzzles is less engaging, if you will. So I don't know exactly how that would translate, and especially games like that where you learn about the lore from the world by reading scraps of paper and stuff like that. You kind of need a character that acts as the person that doesn't know stuff, who can vocalize things, and sometimes that works. I think that thing is probably the weakest part of Last of Us, because in certain cases it kind of makes Ellie just look dumb. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of it's difficult to kind of play with those mechanics, because the medium, the way we engage with the medium is very, very different, and so
yeah,
it's not going to give us the same feels.
I'm not pitching that we put in a movie just them solving puzzles. I mean, like them encountering a mansion that's designed to hide secrets.
Yeah.
Right. So they're figuring out how to open this door, and they're figuring out how to escape traps and stuff. Like, it's not them trying to push boxes into like specific spaces to activate something.
Yeah, just one long shot for like 20 minutes. I'm like, okay, that piece, move over here, arranging it. No, but yeah, if you try and capture like end of the first Harry Potter is basically them like solving puzzles. It's how do we get through this room? If you kind of capture that spirit where like you're quickly moving through them, but you got to put the pieces together.
One of the characters pulls out their phone and looks up a YouTube guide.
I pulled up a walkthrough. I got this on lock. I already know the final boss. Let's get him.
Essentially, though, the main crux of the movie would be the dread with the monsters that are the bioweapons that are involved. So it's not like they're just walking around the mansion just being like, "Ooh, what does this lever do?"
I think that I absolutely agree with you that like incorporating that stuff is a big part of what makes these adaptations work or not work. Does it feel like it's actually adapting the game, or is it just using the game as like a skin?
Yeah.
And that's something I mentioned. I just watched unfortunately I just watched the Minecraft movie, and that was something I came away really thinking, is that like this is not even remotely like, obviously it's not going to be like playing Minecraft because it's such an open-ended thing, but I truly don't think the people who wrote it even liked Minecraft. Like, it has so little to do with anything Minecraft is about tonally or the experience, and it really does feel like it's just we had something else and put a little bit of Minecraft like spray paint on top of it, make it look close enough that we can call it the Minecraft movie.
I thought it was really odd that I didn't see anyone complain that he didn't look like Steve. But
nothing at all.
I mean, it looks
It's
like Jack Black all
ridiculous.
the time.
And they're trying to make it out like, Steve's this great hero. He shows up and he's beating up the bad guys, and it's really hard not to notice that this is an overweight 50-year-old man. Like, he looks rough. His shirt is so tight.
Listen, in my experience, I haven't really played a lot of Minecraft, but I played a lot of Smash Brothers, and I'll tell you, Steve's a dick. I hate that dude. He just like spikes you and then builds a roof so you can't climb back up. It's terrible.
He's the most bad manners character in the war. Uh,
Anyways, essentially what I'm trying to say is I think the success of more recent live action adaptations is due to the fact that they've accepted the absurdity of the source material. Right? I was using Resident Evil as an example because, like, how do you make a movie based on them exploring a mysterious mansion with traps and hidden passages and, you know, revealing the culprit? And I'm like, well, that's a you problem. That's a writer problem. You gotta think of that. You can't just do something completely different, you know?
Get rid of it, you know, Dragon Ball Evolution style, just throw out the entire actual show.
Like, there is a way to respect the source material and figure out the essence of it without making it completely different. Last of Us is just a great example. It takes the framework from the game, but it changes things enough so that the narrative makes sense from a viewer standpoint instead of a gamer standpoint. And that's how they've been able to be successful with that show, because enough of it has changed where you can see stuff from the game. Oh, I recognize that. Oh, she's vaulting that thing to go into that building that I did as well. But the story has changed.
Lord Goob brings up a great point. You know, Fallout is the shining example. Fallout, I thought was a great show, and I know there were certain people that complained about inconsistencies, but I really enjoyed it. It told, like you said, it told a narrative. We had the game elements, but it wasn't trying to feel like we were playing a game.
Yeah. Like, if they had put it in the Fallout universe and it was just about some survivor of the Fallout and, like, it's a completely different story. Like, if they didn't have, like, the vaults and people in the vaults in that story, like, and then going up to the surface, it would have been a completely different thing, a different show. You know?
That's the thing. I didn't actually watch Fallout, but I'm a big fan of the games, and you know, I feel like a lot of adaptations would have tried to scrap things like the ghouls, like, oh, that's too impractical, tone them down. I can't remember what they're called, but like
Ghouls is the best part.
the floating droid robots with saws. Like, I feel like a lot of things would try and make them a bit more realistic, you know, put them on wheels.
You gotta embrace those, you know. I mean,
absolutely.
Another good example is Sonic. They tried to do something weird with Sonic, and the internet was like, no.
He was terrifying.
No.
He was legit terrifying. That was nightmare fuel.
And they changed him enough to grab the essence of the character. Like, there's still certain design elements of Sonic that's not consistent with the video game representation, but it still, you know, captures the essence of Sonic being like a goofy and cartoony looking hedgehog character. But the first iteration they had was like this weird uncanny valley rodent looking thing.
I just remember its teeth and being like, what's wrong with it? Why is it looking at me?
Its beady little eyes.
And when they brought in Tails and Knuckles, they both captured the essence of the character, you know, instead of making it a real fox or a real echidna, but stylized. No, they took the stylizations in the games and made it and changed it where it made sense to have it represented in 3D, you know. So.
California Sat says, I saw an interview with one of the guys in charge, and the original animator came off working on a lot of CG animal characters in a more Disney style and wasn't familiar with the character, which would make sense if they were like
I mean,
like he got the wrong email or something, you know. He was thinking Jungle Book.
Yeah. God. Honestly, like, it's funny that it ended up there. I think the best version would have been if it's just a normal hedgehog painted blue. Just a teeny tiny little, hey, I'm Sonic.
I mean, that would have been better than the first iteration that they released, for sure.
It's true. That's the silver
You
medal.
can't get mad at that. That's a hedgehog.
You said you wanted a hedgehog. I gave you a hedgehog. I don't know what you want from me.
And then like
I would like to see a re-edited movie where like it moves at top hedgehog speed, and you're just like, oh, this is way different than I thought it was gonna be. Like,
He's the fastest hedgehog in the world, but only slightly above any other hedgehog.
and then they embraced Eggman. Like,
Yes, yeah.
You know, Jim Carrey is brilliant as Eggman, but also just keeping his visual identity instead of trying to, you know, give us some kind of quirky scientist that doesn't look like Eggman at all.
Jim Carrey is the epitome ascendant. You know what I mean? Like, that's I love him. I love him so much. There's also people in the chat talking about the Halo show, which I did not watch. However, I heard the second season was really good. From what I understand, though, it's just not good for Halo, but it's like a really good TV show.
How's it going, Dom?
In general, is what I've been told.
So I mean, I think that's about it for our mixer. I mean, anything else?
The other day, the wife and I watched K-pop Demon Hunter, and
I've
banger.
I've been meaning to watch it.
Banger.
I started it, but then
No business being that good. She's
no
still listening.
business?
She's still listening to the album right
Golden?
now. Like, yeah.
Nice.
The song Takedown was performed by Twice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I still have to finish it. I started it and got interrupted and went back to One Piece. I should have watched it and finished it.
You mean it got
I'm a
interrupted
K-pop
by
fan.
your desire to watch One Piece?
Yeah, but it's so tragic because I'm a huge K-pop stan, you know. As soon as that showed up in the Netflix feed, I should have just like watched it. It's a movie, you know. It's a couple of hours, I think. So I'll
You're
watch
my
it.
little soda pop, my little soda pop. Ah, good, fantastic.
Are you a K-pop fan?
Not particularly. I listened to a little bit, but
What's your little bit?
let's see. I'm trying to think.
Probably La Seraphim from the Overwatch collab.
Yeah, a little bit of them. I listened to, what was it, Cupid, when that got really popular, and I gave a second chance to Cupid. Isn't that
Oh,
K-pop?
by 50/50?
Yes.
They disbanded.
Ah.
But
Man.
there's a new 50/50.
Ooh.
One of the members, Chanel Moon, from the new 50/50 is actually the niece of a friend's friend, Steph. Choco knows Steph. We play games with Steph. And her friend's niece is one of the members. And I was just, when I found that out, I was like, can you get me a signed picture? But that's the new 50/50. They did release a Cupid version, or a new version with the new members of Cupid.
That's pretty neat.
That's
I might
cool.
check that out.
Okay.
That one was very catchy.
Definitely check out Aespa. AESPA. I'm not gonna name the Blackpink because I'm pretty sure everybody knows Blackpink. But yeah, everybody should love K-pop. You know, it's good music.
I've been meaning to branch out a little bit. You know what I've been meaning to listen to more of is I have a couple of songs I really like in like Japanese city pop. And I'm like, I should listen to more of this. It's a very charming genre.
Have you listened to Yumi-chan? Hi.
I recognize that exchange. I've never heard. I have no clue where it comes from. I think I just know it from internet osmosis.
Yeah, it's from actually a radio show, but the radio show, quote unquote, anime spawned the group Ice Cream, and they performed live at a festival. That's when it blew up on the internet.
Okay.
Anyways, We all know that trend. I'm not.
Oh yeah,
exposing
no, I know.
myself.
I mean, that's cool. That's cool.
What you do, man? No judgment.
Any baby metal
Yeah.
fans?
What is
Of
it?
course.
Oh,
Baby metal.
I'm familiar with the genre. I've never listened to any. I'll say I'm unfortunately so wildly in the opposite direction. My music taste was very much shaped by what my dad listened to when I was young, which means it's exclusively 60s and 70s hits. I'm more
Okay.
familiar with the Traveling Wilburys than I am with anyone from 2000 or beyond.
The Josh
All right.
says recently
Is
beginning
that
into Twice. They're pretty good. Yeah, they're freaking iconic.
I think that's currently my wife's favorite. But yeah,
Twice?
Yes, and they actually came fairly recently. We wanted to see them, but it didn't end up working out. I also wanted to ask Alex. So those guitars in the back, is that what you're jamming? You know, some of your dad rock music.
I see a book
I-
headstock. Do you have Gibsons?
Do I? I don't think so. So one of these was a gift, and I can't remember what it is.
Taylor? Is that a Taylor?
Does that say Jay Tarson? I think, and the other one is an Epiphone that I got in Memphis. God, well over a decade ago at this point. But I will confess I haven't touched either of those aside from moving them into that corner in months. I'm terrible at keeping up with my practice, but I've always been I'm a very jack of all trades, master of none. So I'm not a great guitarist, but I play guitar.
No.
I'm not a great pianist, but I play piano. I'm not a great percussionist, but I play percussion. I can do a lot of things, a little bit.
That's musically, I'm kind of in the same boat. I mean, I will say I am a very good drummer, but I just kind of dabble with the other stuff, and I'm just nowhere near the same.
Yeah, I've played the guitar since I was 13, so over 20 years. It's been a on again, off again relationship, you know. But I've recently found my love for it again, and I've been, you know, getting the shreds back.
Nice.
Slowly.
Or
but
he
surely.
would, but one piece.
Yes. No, I still find time to play while I'm watching.
Yeah, you can
That's
do
fair.
both.
Now we should stop ignoring the chat and jump into the Star Wars conversation. They were chomping at the bit
Yes.
to talk about, you know,
We've arrived
stop
at the
blaming.
plot.
I'll say, yeah, they were really chomping at the bit. I had someone, I stream on TikTok live every Thursday at 7 p.m. Anyone want to come join me? And I had someone ask me then, like, hey, what did you mean about Anakin and that other thing? How is it not the Jedi's fault? And I'm like, hold on, I'm going to get really into this tomorrow. But yeah, people, this is a topic that always invites a lot of discussion. Everyone's always very eager to talk about. Anakin is such a multifaceted character, and there are so many ways to approach what happened in Revenge of the Sith. I think that's why it's such a compelling, even though I've said it's not that necessarily good a movie, it has so much to dive into, you know. That's why the book's so good.
I think the issue lies with, over the years, there's been so many people that either glaze and stand Anakin hard, and at the same time just completely dump their baggage with religion onto the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
And so those two things mixed means that Anakin did no wrong, and the Jedi was at fault.
Yeah.
But I think we should address some things back.
Yeah, so I'm going to read the first one from Craig McGuinn here. It says, ironic how when the parents who raised school shooter played a role in how their kid turned out, the parents can get some of the blame, and yet Jedi are exempt with their failings in teaching Anakin. Just because Anakin is responsible for his own actions doesn't mean the Jedi have no blame whatsoever in this situation.
See, now there's two things.
So what do you think of that?
I would say immediately two things jump there, which is one, that's presenting two ideas as though they're one, which is, did the Jedi play a role in Anakin falling, and is it the Jedi's fault? Because one of those is a hard, fast no. The other one, I'd say, like, absolutely. You know, a lot of things played a role in Anakin falling. Qui-Gon, Padme, Watto, all of them played a role in Anakin falling to the dark side. It's not Watto's fault either. Like, Watto is so far removed, but you also can't ignore the impact that he had. And the second thing is that... Oh, what was the second thing? I got so caught up in whether they play a role or not.
No, that's a great point. I mean, the thing that jumps out to me is, you know, if we're looking at that first comment about parents who play a role in their kid if they turn out to be a school shooter. Anakin is an adult. He's an adult man. This is not. Yeah, this is not a school shooter situation. This is your kid moves out of the house and makes their own decisions and then does something stupid. You know what I mean? And so that in and of itself paints a very different picture. Not to mention that he was doing exactly the opposite of what they were instructing him to do. I think it'd be one thing if they were giving him the bad advice and he followed it and that's where it concluded. But if you tell someone like, hey, don't touch the stove, it's hot, and then they touch the stove and get burned, is that your fault? I don't think so. You know, if you look at the Jedi who for 10,000 years there was you know, relative peace, and then the one who decides not to listen to the Jedi falls to the dark side. I mean, I think that says something. And then if you look at the expanded universe, like his son doesn't do what the old Jedi said, falls to the dark side, and then the next generation with Jason doesn't do what the old Jedi says, falls to the dark side. Like, at some point, we got to recognize the pattern, you know?
I also want to address the fact that these two thoughts aren't mutually exclusive. So, the last point, which is yet the Jedi's feelings with teaching Anakin make them exempt, nobody said they were exempt. We said... So the title of this episode is "Stop Blaming Anakin." Stop blaming the Jedi for Anakin's actions. In what Anakin does, by betraying Mace Windu, killing the younglings, slaughtering the Jedi Temple, pushing the galaxy into 20 years of oppression and genocide. That's all stuff that he chose to do, and I want to address, if I can find it really quickly, because someone said something about Anakin's predetermination.
Ooh, yeah,
I saw that as well.
Yeah. While you're looking, I'll mention what Choco said actually reminded me of what my second thing was, which is, yeah, you could say, you know, you could wonder whether the parents played a role. But frankly, if Uncle Gary is there, cloaked in a black robe, cackling and telling you to kill your friends, I'd say you'd be pretty crazy to blame the parents. Point the finger at Uncle Gary, if anything.
Which is essentially, you know, like...
Uncle Gary's like, don't listen to your parents. They're holding you back. Kill everyone. Yeah. They're like, why would the parents let him kill everyone? Like, come on.
Your parents and your friends all hate you. Here's a machine gun. Like, okay, I don't think this is the parents' fault, actually.
This is where I come down on it, too, because, like, I've said from the very beginning that too many people talk about the Jedi's role in Anakin's decisions. Not enough people talk about Palpatine's role. You know, and he was outlandishly a part of Anakin's fall. You know. And
that's, you know, it's funny to approach this from the other direction. I had someone one time who said that, like, blaming it on Palpatine was like a deflection. Like, they were going even harder than usual on Anakin, where they were saying, oh, Anakin's just a bad egg and he would have fallen to the dark side no matter what. And they said, like, look at episode 2. He's this arrogant, egotistical, obnoxious kid. And the quote that they said that always sticks out to me is, Anakin's got the exact vibe of someone who's been told their whole life that they're so special, and he believes it. And I'm like, yes, he has been told his whole life he's so special. Palpatine is the one who's been telling him that. Like,
even throughout that film, he's like, yeah, you're actually the greatest of them all, and they don't realize it. Oh, finally they're appointing you to do something. I mean, I question their wisdom if they didn't, like, yeah.
So this is from Akani Oye. No one can blame the Jedi for Anakin Skywalker force determination destiny theory. Right from birth, his life course was predetermined by his alignment with the Force. So that theory has been bunked by George Lucas a long time ago. Because when he talks about the fight with Mace and Palpatine and Anakin's choice to betray Mace, he says, it's clear as day, Anakin can stop the Sith right here. He can fulfill his prophecy here, but he chooses Padme and he chooses to betray Mace. Now,
you must choose.
Now Anakin does fulfill the prophecy later with the help of Luke. But George's point is he could have also fulfilled his prophecy right then and there by destroying Palpatine. So there is no predetermination. When we argue this over and over again, that the will of the Force does not mean there is fate. It is always with the determination of those who hear the will and those who choose to act on it. Just like in Andor, even though that wasn't a very Force-heavy lore show, he meets a Force healer who says he's collecting on his way and he's meant to be where he needs to be. And it's all contingent on Andor choosing to be where he needs to be. Because if he doesn't, then none of this happens.
That's the thing. I think a lot of people present it as though like fate or destiny is removed from free will, as though like no matter what you do, this will happen anyways. But it's more like this will happen because of what you do. Like, I think the existence of prophecies does mean like, if you can say with certainty that a chosen one will come and he will bring balance, like there is some measure of predictability to this universe, but it's only going to happen that way because Anakin is who he is, because he's the kind of person who will fail to make the right choice when the time comes to it. I think that, it's presenting it as though it was always going to be this way, ignores the fact that, like, Anakin still made it that way. They're making choices along the way. Just because you can predict stuff doesn't mean he couldn't have done something else.
Yeah, I mean, like George says, you have a destiny, but you have to choose to follow it, And if you choose not to, then you don't. But what's cool is it really seems like the Force can, in and of itself, elect someone else to make the next attempt. That it'll keep trying to self-correct over time, and so that's why my theory, right? This is not like a thing, but my theory is that that's just how the concept of Force ghosts work. They see all time at one instance. They see the end and they see the beginning. They see all of it, and they are trying to avert disaster before we get there, right? They're like your YouTube video when you have crappy internet and it's buffering, and they're trying to make sure this doesn't meet, otherwise life ends. And so they will poke and prod, maybe you don't do what you need to do, or maybe you do. Maybe there was a fulcrum where they needed the Death Star plans, otherwise they would have hit that buffer. And that's why when Chirrut Imwe walks across the sand chanting, no one can hit him, because the Force is essentially electing him. It needs this thing to happen, but it wasn't his destiny to It wasn't predetermined. So the same thing can still play out multiple ways. Is another part of it as well. But I do think overall, the Chosen One prophecy was a cheap add-on that George shouldn't have made for the prequels. I think it gives a lot of people the wrong impression of certain things. Like, you know,
there's a meme of what is it? It's Anakin being held up at the end of the pod race. He's cheering, and it's something about like Palpatine coming back, and then it's a little kid in the background who, like, in the scene wasn't enthusiastic enough, so he looks kind of like, and the caption for that is like the entire point of the first 6 movies, and it comes across my page constantly because any sequel hate will, and it drives me insane every time I see it. Not because I want to defend the sequels necessarily. If you watch those 6 movies and you think the whole point is we gotta kill the right guy, if you watch the original trilogy, you think that the point is that the shriveled wizard without a name died, that is not the point in the slightest. It doesn't impact Return of the Jedi at all if Palpatine lives. The whole point was saving Luke. As long as Luke makes it away from that fight, that's the point. He chose love.
Yep.
Oh, it invites such a fire in me. I can't stand, like, the Chosen One prophecy has restructured people's perceptions of the original trilogy for the worse.
Yeah.
I completely agree. I'm imagining now how the narrative plays out without it. Because Luke saving his father through love has a lot more impact because it's an action that he took. It's an action that he chose and has nothing to do with Anakin being the chosen one.
Yeah.
It's just the tragedy, his father fell to the dark side and became a Sith.
Yeah.
And the love of his son is what saved him. The spark of his love for Padme. The whole narrative stays relatively the same. If you remove the prophecy.
I think the prophecies. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's stronger that this isn't just something that had to happen. It's not just this was inevitably going to happen because a wizard 1,000 years ago said it would. It's Anakin making the right choice in the end. And that's the issue with prophecies in general, is that they take away the agency of the characters by saying, like, it was always going to be like this.
I mean, from a lot of people's perspective, again, I still maintain, like, let's say Anakin doesn't fulfill it. That doesn't prevent the Force from trying it again. You know what I mean? And this person just didn't fulfill it. It's kind of similar to Palpatine turning Anakin. And I always see people who are like, oh, well, if this happened, then he wouldn't have turned him. And you're like, that wasn't the first attempt. And if that attempt didn't work, he would have tried another attempt later. You know what I mean? Like, we already know of at least 2 other attempts to turn Anakin, and he wasn't ready at those times. He's going to keep trying. This is not a one and done thing. And so, him being the chosen one, the person who fulfills the prophecy. That's the other thing about prophecies, is they are backloaded, right? Whoever fulfills the prophecy is the chosen one. They are the chosen one because they fulfill the prophecy. If Anakin fails to do it, like, in nowhere does it say that Anakin is the only person that could be born that way. At no point does it say that there is, you know what I mean? Like, it could be filled a number of different times, and in the future there could have been another chosen one.
There's also, like, multiple prophecies.
That's true.
A whole bunch of others.
Illy says thousands of Jedi and no Sith is not a balance. That's the opposite of balance. So this is a good opportunity to actually address this. So
I made a video about this a little bit ago.
Balance has nothing to do with Jedi and Sith. It has nothing to do with the amount of them. It has nothing to do with them as entities. It has everything to do with the Force's ability to flow freely. And the natural balance of things is the flow from light, which is life, to death, which is decay, into rebirth, back into light. The Last Jedi does a brilliant job of depicting this. But the reason George says that light is balance, he's talking about the use of the Force and the Jedi, because as we often describe balance in the Force, it's a river, and that is a canon explanation now because it's been written.
Yep.
It's a river, and the Jedi use the river's current to aid them. It's a water wheel or a water mill. They need it to generate power. They need it to spin a wheel and help them in their everyday life. And the Sith dam up the river and change its currents, or just hold it hostage, creating chaos downstream, which then throws it out of balance. And that's why the Sith, just by their very existence and their ideology, is imbalance. And having a world full of Jedi and no Sith is still imbalanced. In balance.
It is in
it.
balance, not imbalance.
I would like to clarify.
So,
Although
okay.
I do also, I want to add an addendum on the Sith, by their very existence, create imbalance. I do want to clarify, like, it's the actions that the Sith take.
Yes.
You know, it's the things that they permit upon the galaxy. So, like, Palpatine being alive on Exegol, doing nothing for 30 years, isn't creating much imbalance until he starts doing things again, until he starts sending out Star Destroyers. Maul being alive on Malachor, you know, I've said before, it's really vanity to say that the roster numbers of either of these religions is a key part of the balance of the universe. You know, why did these two get elevated to such an important status? Just because there are movies about them?
To be fair,
And then,
Palpatine doing nothing is still imbalance, because he's still I guess that's not doing nothing, but like he's
kinetic energy.
He's playing with Sith alchemy and rituals, and
Well,
Yes.
I mean, to an extent, we actually don't know the full extent of what he was doing. We do know that for a very long time, he was just trying to not be dead. You know what I mean? But yeah, him, you know, starting to meddle by way of the First Order is still gonna start that imbalance. But another thing, Ellie said, if George intended for the balance to be a lack of the dark side, that's weird. Without dark, there can be no light, and vice versa. Again, it's not without the dark side. The dark side exists. Darkness exists. It exists in all of us. We watch season 5, the Clone Wars. Yoda fights his inner darkness. Like that is a thing. So the dark side will always exist, but at the very core, Star Wars, good and bad, light and dark, is selflessness versus selfishness. This is you know, the light, the Jedi, these are people who protect the galaxy, right? They are protecting the balance. If you watch Fern Gully, these are the people preventing the loggers from destroying, you know, the town and making this place unlivable forever. And that's what the Sith want to do, is it's always me. They take and take and take. They take from planets to the point of destroying the ecosystem of that planet, destroying the life on that planet. They commit genocide across the universe. They do everything. That's why you'll also notice that everything on that side is very mechanical. It's very sterile, right? Versus very warm and full of life, you know. That's why they are known to do things that are unnatural. Their whole thing is trying to subvert nature, subvert the life cycle for their own benefit. The Jedi protect that. So you can have as many people on the light side preventing imbalance, yeah, and that doesn't cause imbalance, but the people who are actively trying to do that, you know, yeah, they're causing it.
I seem to have misunderstood the whole balance in the Force thing, but although what you're explaining is canon is lore, it just doesn't make sense to me. Sorry, I must investigate more. And feel free to ask more questions so that we can better address what you're misunderstanding, or if there's any more information you need. But essentially, balance in the Force isn't so the word balance. There's different meanings to it, right? The misconception for Star Wars fans most likely comes from balance being a scale. One side is heavier, throws it off balance. But this balance means that things are in harmony. Like, this ecosystem is balanced. It has its predators, it has its prey. One source feeds into another source, a death feeds new life. All of this stuff is in balance, right? So it's not a scale. It's just, I would have preferred. It makes sense that George chose the term balance in the Force, but he meant harmony.
Mm-hmm.
Because
it's very
it is
philosophical
a cycle.
sort of balance, yeah.
Yep. So Kenny asked, can we talk about mine? Absolutely. He says, I have a question for you guys. Wasn't the Force in balance before Palpatine? At least in the Jedi's eyes, because they hadn't found a Sith for 1,000 years.
I saw this one. I liked it. And I did want to talk about it because I would argue that, yes, in the Jedi's eyes, the Force was in balance before the Clone Wars and all that.
And that's the problem.
The Jedi were wrong. The Jedi believed that the Force was in balance because they, much like much of the fandom, had come to the impression that balance meant just, are the Sith around? If they're not, we're golden. Which, A, they were wrong about the Sith being around, but B, it's not a matter of, do the Sith exist? Corruption and villainy had run rampant in the Republic. Slavery was essentially legal in outlying systems. There was a lot of imbalance that the Jedi had become a little bit blind to.
I mean, when we get to The Phantom Menace, the very first movie for Star Wars, chronologically, when that movie starts, Palpatine had already been in control of the galaxy for a decade. I think that's the thing that people miss a lot of, right? The Sith, and part of this is going to be drawing on Legends, but Palpatine himself represents the tip of the spear of 1,000-year, even longer than that, project to destroy the Jedi, to take over the Republic. And that has always been a thing. They've always, rather than outright fight, they've been going down the line, down the succession of Sith, slowly positioning things, slowly attaining wealth and attaining power and doing all of this stuff. So just because they launched their attack in the prequels doesn't mean that they weren't already in full control.
Yeah.
Palpatine controlled both sides from the shadows already.
Absolutely. If we're being generous, the Force hasn't been in balance since the Ruusan Reformations. If we're not being generous, you could say it hasn't really been in balance since the Sith founded themselves and began a 5,000-year legacy of war.
Yeah. They're not good guys.
We're a real bunch of stinkers. Can't stand these dudes.
Well, I mean, I don't. So I'm gonna push back on the both of you, because I don't think in the Jedi's eyes it was in balance, because they were referring to the prophecy quite heavily that is he the one to bring balance to the Force? Like, I think they were aware that there was some kind of imbalance somewhere that they just
true.
They just didn't know it,
And then Mace even does say we should inform the Senate that our ability to see the future is diminished. And so they knew something. Yeah, they did know something was wrong. But overall, I think we're trying to lean into the Jedi's complacency with the way things were, which is also why they got caught off guard.
Mm-hmm. I think we went a little bit too heavy on, like, they failed to gauge the depth of the problem that they were facing. They thought it was like things were a little bit amiss. They didn't realize, like, oh, this is rotted to the core. Palpatine has been and the Sith as a large have been manipulating things for 1,000 years. I think there's even a bit in Darth Plagueis where they mention like the war is pretty much already won. It's just like details for the next like decade or two. And he's got a good point. Frankly, the Jedi have already lost by the time Phantom Menace ends. The Sith rule the galaxy. Like, he's called a chancellor now, but he's already got everything he needs to make himself emperor. What is it? Revenge of the Sith, best book ever written. There's a line from Mace Windu about like the only reason Palpatine isn't a suspect for the Sith Lord we're looking for is because he's already in control of the galaxy. So if it's him, we've lost.
Don't the Jedi use the Force for their own means too? Only Wayseekers follow the wills, go where the Force wants them to, whereas the other Jedi do what the politicians and Jedi Council says to. So
there is kind of a misconception when it comes to the Jedi and their relationship with the Senate, and with the politicians. It's not that they are necessarily doing the bidding of the politicians, which, by the way, sometimes they do. Sometimes they are asked to step in to this situation, but the problem is not the Jedi in and of themselves. The problem is actually something that the Jedi have no control over. And a great example of this is in what's the animated show with the shorts? Tales of the Jedi. So in Tales of the Jedi, we get to the one with Count Dooku, right? The very first one. And they are answering a call from the Senate. But what are they doing? Someone was kidnapped and their life was being threatened, and they were helping to negotiate their release. That is a Jedi thing to do. That is a good thing to do. Little do they know that the senator is corrupt, and the reason that the child was kidnapped, quote unquote, was to try and fix that imbalance. And so the Jedi aided in it, but they weren't actually like part of the Senate or part of the politics of it. They were just being used by these corrupt individuals.
Also,
if that makes sense.
They work closely with the Senate, but they're not like beholden to it. They're not following orders. It's, can you help? And the Jedi say yes.
Yeah. Or they say no. They do that all the time too.
Also, we need to clarify that while the Jedi use the Force for their own means, like augmenting their bodies and lifting objects and everything in between, that is not the same as the Sith seeking to control the very Force itself and subjugating it to their will. This is what I meant by the river analogy, where the Jedi use the current of the Force to aid them, but the Sith throw it out of balance by damming it up and trying to harness it all for themselves unnaturally. Right? So using the Force to aid you isn't a dark side thing. It's trying to control it.
But the Jedi do guard against what they consider frivolous use of the Force, and Anakin even says Obi-Wan would be very grumpy if he saw me doing this. And he was using the Force to try and riz a girl, you know what I mean? Like, that scene bothers the hell out of me too, because the way she bites the pear, the way it like sucks into her mouth it's just really odd.
Yeah, and I also have to impress that what we see of the Jedi largely is in a time when they are at their weakest in terms of position and spiritually, right? The prequels, right? Most of what we see of the Jedi in the High Republic is what they're supposed to be, and they're bogged down by conflict even in those books, but there's still a lot of the Republic complaining because they can't just order the Jedi to do things. They are autonomous, and this is what I want people to take away from this discussion, is that what the Jedi are, what they're supposed to be, is not represented well in the prequels. The prequels were meant to show their downfall and why they fell. But in and of themselves, as Jedi, they were keepers of the peace. They were defenders of the light.
Yeah. It's just hard to keep the peace when someone is controlling both sides and actively forcing a war. And so that's the other part I do see a lot of misconception on, is like, oh, it's Jedi's fault. They got involved in the Clone Wars and they really shouldn't have. The Clone Wars were fake. The Clone Wars were fake. Just keep saying that over and over again. It was not a real war. That was not a real conflict. It was a manufactured one. So regardless of what the Jedi did, and again, this is also goes back to the Revenge of the Sith novelization. I mean, he says, like, what is the best Jedi trap? It's one that they're already in before they even realize it, right? So they're in this no-win situation where this war breaks out. Bunch of droids are going to kill a lot of people. What do the Jedi do? Do they say, nope, we're neutral, and let all the people die? How would that make the Jedi look? How would that affect the galaxy? Are they supposed to protect those people? They're not killing people by fighting the robots and stopping them. So is that a good thing? And that's basically what Palpatine keeps doing, is he keeps giving them two bad choices and saying, you got to choose one. You either are joining the war and getting involved in this conflict, or you're letting the galaxy die. And like that's Palpatine's, that's why he's so good, as he sets it up where it doesn't matter what you choose, he's gonna win.
Palpatine's design is exploiting the Jedi's very nature to want to protect life.
Yeah.
You know, and Kenny, to your most recent sentence, this plays on the Jedi's intelligence. They had enough information to withdraw from the Clone Wars, but what happens if they withdraw from the Clone Wars?
Yeah,
Then the Republic falls.
Republic falls. A lot of people die, and what happens? Well, the Sith take over the galaxy, and the Jedi are seen as the enemy. I mean, you also have to think of the mastery of having Dooku on the other side. Well, now you can say, well, the Jedi are causing this war. And if the Jedi say we're no longer being involved in the Clone Wars, and the Separatists being led by a former Jedi take over, well, then now it looks like the Jedi are complicit in this. And then the Jedi become the enemies of the Republic. So now they can do a kill order, and you get to the same exact conclusion. Again, we got to keep going past the single decision. Either way, you end up in the same place. The whole goal, turn the galaxy against the Jedi, take over the Republic. Either way, that was happening.
I mean, you said it earlier. They were caught between a rock and a hard place. There was no good decision there. That was Palpatine's design from the beginning.
Yeah, he already ruled the Republic. The Clone Wars were explicitly and exclusively about how can I get the Jedi into a position that I can wipe them all out. And this was 1,000 years of planning building up to this is the master stroke. Because the other thing is, Palpatine made both armies. He manufactured the clone army and the droid army, and he intentionally made one much, much bigger and more dangerous. And it's the droid army, so that the clones couldn't do it on their own. He made sure that the Jedi were a vital aspect of the Republic, even having a chance in the war. And for much of, certainly like the Clone Wars multimedia project, the Republic was kind of on the back foot for a lot of it. Like, even with the Jedi, they were barely holding together, and there were a lot of people dying. We're looking at the trolley problem on a galactic scale, and people were just saying, like, oh, you just shouldn't do anything, like, wait and figure out the answer. But, like, the trolley's gonna hit someone. There isn't time to figure out an answer. You got to do something, or else you're just gonna watch a bunch of people get hit.
Kenny says, I think you're wrong, Element. They found Maul in the Phantom Menace, which confirmed it's not in balance for them. I just assumed they weren't really sure. So, I don't know if you have the name wrong, but I did say that the Jedi did not believe the Force to be in balance.
That's true. If anything, you got us again.
And also, Maul died in the Phantom Menace, and so at the end they're like, which one was it? So that started the mystery, of course, of like something is going on here. The Sith have revealed themselves. We just don't know if that was the master or the apprentice or what the further threat is.
But even
at that point they knew there was a threat.
But even before that all happens, the mystic that prophesies the one will be born of the Force, and will bring ultimate balance to the Force.
Now,
The
I'll
Jedi
say,
believed in that.
I would argue prior to that, certainly a lot of expanded material has dive into. A lot of people thought that Qui-Gon was kind of just full of it. Like, they knew that there was this prophecy, but a lot of them felt like, oh, it probably happened already. Like, we don't know what it refers to. In Master and Apprentice, certainly, like Qui-Gon and Dooku are kind of seen as eccentric for looking at a prophecy so much and caring about this stuff.
Yeah.
I also need to rewatch The Phantom Menace. I'm pretty sure when they bring up the prophecy to the Jedi Council, like, they're a little bit like, you think it's real? You think this is an actual thing? Because I think that a lot of them don't put a ton of stock into the whole Chosen One thing up until Anakin shows up and Qui-Gon is suddenly like, hey, I found him.
Even after that, it's still like, if the prophecy is true, then he's the one that'll bring it. It's not that they're like, this kid is checking a lot of boxes, but there's always skepticism there. So again, there's no confirmation that he's a chosen one until he does the thing.
And even
you can believe it.
There's a long stretch where, like, Obi-Wan pretty clearly bought into it, especially on Mustafar. Obviously, he tells Anakin, you were the chosen one. But then after that, Obi-Wan becomes convinced that it's Luke. Yep. Like, they're all trying their best to, like, figure out what it means.
Well, I mean, you wouldn't think it was Anakin still after.
Exactly. Very justified in changing tactics. He tells Maul that it's Luke. And it's like, well, you're close.
But that's why I love Star Wars, is just because someone believes something or says something doesn't mean that person is accurate or is operating from the same pool of information that we are. Again, we always have to remember these characters haven't seen the movie. Like, we know how it ends, but they do not in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They found the Chosen One, so it confirmed that Anakin will end up killing the Sith Lord. Not really sure how Yoda or Mace didn't pick up on that. At that time, there is no suspected Sith Lord. Mm-hmm. Right. They find out in Attack of the Clones from Obi-Wan that there is a Darth Tyrannus. And then after that, they find out there is this Darth Sidious. But
I think
at that
after
time,
Phantom
they
Menace,
don't.
I think they have a little inkling of someone, because they know there may still be a master or there may be an apprentice, but they don't have a name to put to it.
Yeah, but even then, the prophecy does not name the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
That's a misreading from Obi-Wan. It says that through him will ultimate balance be restored. It doesn't say anything about destroying the Sith.
No.
Exactly, yeah. The Jedi assumed it meant destroying the Sith, and frankly, a lot of the fandom has really latched onto, you have to destroy the Sith or else the prophecy isn't fulfilled. But I made a video about exactly this. In Legends, in canon, or in George Lucas's projected sequels, the Sith were always going to survive past Return of the Jedi. Yep. So either Anakin isn't the Chosen One, which, in my opinion, makes those first 6 movies real weird, or it just didn't mean destroying the Sith. It meant something else.
Yeah, I mean, in the expanded universe, there was a whole planet. There was a whole planet of them. Like, Jesus.
Hundreds of years.
Anakin was furious at not being on the Jedi Council at the beginning of his descent into darkness.
That wasn't the beginning.
No, he was up to his nipples in darkness by that time. I mean, the first time we explicitly see his descent is him slaughtering the Sand People. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, but, they took his mom, so it was justified. And you're like, no, it wasn't. Like, not the women and the children and people who weren't involved in it at all. And by the way, he knew that he was doing the wrong thing, and that's why he has that reaction to it. But that shows where he's at. And again, at that point in time, he throws out the rule book. You know what I mean? He is, the Jedi's, the way they watch out for attachments is like someone who is predisposed to being an alcoholic, right? Some people may say, "Oh, we're not going to touch it at all," and that may be their reality. Some people will say, "You know what? I can get closer to that." You may get your canins in there, but in the case of Anakin, he was a full-on like drunkard who was just hiding it the entire time. You know what I mean? Like that's he was deep in it.
I mean, going off of what you just said, he was just hiding it. I feel like his first brush with darkness was him saying then they should be made to listen.
Yeah.
By who? You? And he's like, "Oh no, just someone."
Some chancellor, maybe. I don't know. That's the thing. I think if you wanted to find his the start of his descent into darkness, we would need to see like the first meeting Palpatine had with him. That would be the first moment.
True.
Like you could say the Phantom Menace, will watch your career with great interest, but we know that Palpatine and Anakin had like frequent, or at least semi-frequent one-on-one meetings. Aside from the other Jedi, the first one of those is Anakin beginning his descent. And it plants.
Now that I think about it, I'm thinking of another example of his first brush, which is him telling Obi-Wan, "Are you dreaming of your mother?" And she says, "No, Padme." The thought of her is intoxicating.
I'd rather be dreaming of Padme. No, I was going to say his first brush with darkness was the time that him and Palpatine went clubbing.
It was a dark.
That was a weird comic. But
Anakin, have you ever heard the tragedy of death sticks?
Honestly, this is what it all comes down to. I mean, Palpatine probably holds the most blame. But what we're trying to say is Anakin made the choice.
That's the thing. Palpatine is second to Anakin himself. I think the best way of looking at it is, take Palpatine out of the situation, move him halfway across the galaxy, Anakin doesn't fall to the dark side. He continues to clash with the Jedi, but he would never turn evil. Take Anakin halfway across the galaxy, he's not going to fall to the dark side.
I don't even think he.
But Palpatine is going to try to corrupt someone else. You know what I mean? And the only two that become Sith were people directly involved with Palpatine.
I honestly don't even think that he continues to clash with the Jedi because again, Palpatine.
I think
being part of goading him as the best was also telling him not to trust them. So if you remove Palpatine from the equation, he just has squabbles with Obi-Wan as a master and disagrees.
That's exactly what I meant. Is he's still gonna butt heads with Mace Windu, who's very by the books, while he's a loose cannon. But there will be no more question of can Anakin be trusted? The answer would be yes. He's just a very reckless guy.
Now there is I'm on the opposite camp as you on that one. I think without Palpatine in the picture, him and Mace Windu become fast friends. I think he's someone who's man, I'm struggling with my emotions. I really love fighting and all this stuff. That's Mace Windu's bread and butter. Mace Windu is the basketball coach who's he's you didn't do your homework, you can't play. I hate you, coach. I hate you. And then eventually kids oh, I guess learning is a benefit. And then it makes him a better basketball player. That's what I see their relationship being.
See, the thing is I'm almost 100% with you because I've talked about if Anakin didn't go with Obi-Wan, if Anakin had been assigned to Mace as his Padawan, they would have been a fantastic duo. Absolutely incredible, all-time top-tier Jedi team. I think that once he wasn't his Padawan, I think that Mace would always just look at him as, oh, it's this kid again, causing problems. I think that they absolutely have the potential to be exactly what you described. I just don't know that. I think they're both too stubborn to ever actually get there.
Well, I have something for you. Did you read Glass Abyss?
I did.
So I might be remembering this wrong, but wasn't Anakin stoked, like thrilled when Mace was like, this kid is learning Vapad and I'm not even teaching him.
I'm trying to remember. There was
That was, yeah.
yeah. Gosh, it's
Like
been a while.
Anakin was watching Mace, and then he picked up some techniques from him, and Mace was like, you know, you're very skilled. And then Anakin was like, really? That means a lot.
Yeah.
Boy, howdy.
Gee willikers.
It's true. Actually, a bigger factor that in fairness, I failed to add in is a lot of Anakin's recklessness came from the fact that he's situated in the Clone Wars. You know, you take out the Clone Wars, like if you get rid of Palpatine,
Very
you get rid of
true.
the Clone Wars themselves, a whole different Jedi Order. It's actually kind of impossible to say how things would go. I could definitely see in peacetime Anakin and Mace getting along very well. I think Mace is just too
the missions
focused
look
on the war.
way different.
I mean,
Exactly.
also, there's a lot more awareness of just everything because they're not, you know, I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, the Jedi had to have known that they were married and all this stuff. And you're like, no, there's a war happening. There's thousands of people dying on a daily basis. This is not an office job where you sit next to Yoda and he asks about your day. You know what I mean? Like, they're all busy out doing stuff. They don't talk to each other for weeks or months at a time. And
That's another thing that changes. From Rise of the Red Blade,
yeah,
we learn that many Padawan,
so many Jedi died.
Well, many Padawan were knighted just because they needed soldiers.
Very early.
When
Including Anakin.
When Palpatine enacted the Integration Act and he signed into not into law, I'm trying to figure out the words, but when he signed into being that Padawans should go to war as well, that's when Anakin was knighted. He was knighted with Iskat, that class, and it was knighted early. Everybody was knighted early in that class because they needed knights.
And I'm pretty sure Palpatine enacted that law specifically to get Anakin in the field.
Yeah.
Kenny Heron in the chat says they really assassinated Padme's character for Dooku by making someone like Padme fall in love with Anakin after him admitting he just slaughtered Tuskens. They could have just had Anakin not tell her.
I don't think she fell in love because he's
True, yeah.
like I'm gonna admit here that George just did not know how to write Padme, right? Gave her some banger lines about liberty dying, but like the whole romance between Anakin and Padme, not believable.
Yeah, barely a human being.
Stop looking at me like that, Anakin. Jesus Christ.
Your creepy eyes. I do.
It makes me uncomfortable.
Sort of a headcanon that, like, does Padme even really know what Tuskens are? Like, she's never seen one. She may just think they're like some sort of creature, you know? She may not know that they're like...
I don't think he said it. I think he said, I slaughtered them. The women and children, too.
So that's the thing. I think you could generously say that she thought they were some less sentient being. I think if she had ever met a Tusken, she would be rightly horrified. But I think she was kind of thinking like, well, Anakin would never do that to something intelligent, so this must be some sort of creature he found.
Yeah. Also, I think it's kind of speaks more to Padme's character of like, there's darkness in this man, but I think he can do great things, you know. And she fell in love with him, and of course, yeah, he does that. But unlike us, we watched it happen. He just says this thing, and she doesn't know what the reality of it was. He's crying. She's at his parents' house. His mom just died. She's like, "Let me just hug, and then we'll deal with this later." And so that's how I think of their relationship: is two people who really needed to have some real deep conversations, but circumstances just never allowed it to happen, and so they kept pushing this thing down the hill until it was just too late and everything fell apart. But I think more or less George assassinated her character with the third film. Like, she just sits there being pregnant. She's brushing her super curly hair, which doesn't make any sense. And it's like, no, because I'm so in love with you. Well,
Yeah.
then love has blinded you. Like,
But also, it's
Single
like
worst exchange in the
it's
series.
also inconsistent
Christ.
with her character too, because like Anakin has killed women and children, and when Obi-Wan says killing younglings, it's like, I don't believe you. Anakin wouldn't. It's like,
Wouldn't he?
he's killed children. And women.
didn't he?
He already has. Yeah, you know, it always comes up with the sequels where people say like, "Oh, Finn got sidelined," like it's disrespectful to the character. Like comparatively, Finn was a masterpiece compared to Padme.
Yeah.
At least Finn got to do something. He was around. You know, I'd say, in order of side characters not being appreciated, it would be third place Finn, second place Han in Jedi,
Return of the Jedi. Yeah.
and then Padme at the
I will.
top.
I will say this.
See? I'm right there with you. I always say that.
I will say this. I think J.J. Abrams is the culprit in sidelighting Finn the most. Now,
Oh,
Yeah. It's
There
insane that
is
Ryan gets blamed for it.
undoubtedly.
there is a better story and better arc for Finn, but putting him into a coma and then Ryan Johnson giving him a story with Phasma and the other stormtroopers, and then we go to him just chasing Rey all day in Rise. That is JJ being like, I don't know what to do with you.
Yeah.
And Ryan's
It's
like,
insane.
I do. He has a dispute with Phasma, and he's gonna compel his other stormtroopers to,
He
see the
defeats
light.
his personal foil in single combat at the climax of the movie, and that's the one where they say he did nothing?
It's so aggravating to me because it's so obvious, and then they're like, well, it's just a difference in opinion. But I'm like, it's not a difference in opinion. Like, we have to remember that there was an IP development group. There was a group of people who planned the structure of the sequels. J.J. Abrams was one of those people. So if J.J. Abrams wanted him to do something else, wanted him to be a Jedi, he would have made that happen. He was in control of the overall story. He was the executive producer. He didn't end the first movie where he would become a Jedi, and he didn't do anything with him in the last movie. Like, there's literally only one movie where he has a full story arc, and that's the one that they claim sidelines him. And you're like, you're Jedi. Now there is a conversation to be had with the advertising. The advertising was trying to hide that Rey was the protagonist.
Which was weird.
Now,
Mhm.
a lot of us already knew because I had already seen concept art for like Kira's speeder and Kira's this and that, but like, yeah, they tried to portray it like this guy was going to be the main character, and he just wasn't. They never intended that. You are not going to find concept art of Finn as a Jedi because they never thought about making that happen. And then I get people, oh, he could have trained with Leia, and like before we confirmed that she had trained herself. Like, no,
Leia does a single
Jesus.
thing with the Force across 3 movies, and people have been complaining about it for the last 8 years. She uses the Force one time, and everyone threw a fit. And yet they pretend that, oh yeah, she totally should have been a Jedi Master, and she just didn't do anything with it in the last movie. Like, so many things they wanted from Last Jedi are just directly contradict what the first one did. Like,
and ultimately, there was more. There was a lot more. She died.
yeah, that was real curveball.
What do you do? Like that was supposed to be her movie.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, that was a big issue.
Agent Argent Stone says, what do you guys think of the theory Anakin is subtly and unknowingly mind tricking Padme?
It makes me feel icky.
Yeah,
A
I
lot
think
of issues with consent there.
exactly. That's the thing. It's an uncomfortable wrinkle to add to it, and I
It's
think
not
it's
made any better with unknowingly.
Yeah, that's the thing. It feels very Prince Shizor in a way I don't like. Which is funny because I do like Scoundrels has a Faline villain, and I thought that was very
I
well.
love Scoundrels.
It's I don't know.
Winter,
what it is, like,
come back, Winter. I love you.
Oh, she's so good. For some reason, when this guy does creepy sex predator, it's like, okay, that's fine. I don't know what the difference is.
Yeah.
But
I don't like that theory.
It's not creepy when they're hot. That's what I've learned.
Also, Anakin
Which
never whether it was a point to be made or not by George. I don't think Anakin ever displayed any affinity for mind touch.
True. He used a lot more of the brute strength sides of the Force. And I think that, it's better explained by Padme just being a little, like, she is also young. She's just a little bit older than he is, and I think it's just she's got some weird interpersonal traits. Like, some people just have...
Also hampered by the fact that there's a war.
Yeah.
And she's a senator.
No, but you're exactly right. A, she's young. B, she's extremely idealistic. So she can see the darkness in him and still have so much belief that, if you just show him love and show him light, then he'll choose the light. But she also has no life. We forget she has no experience with men, with boys, with dating, with any of that. She's been
that's disrespectful to Paolo.
Exactly. So she really just, she's tossed in there as well. So we have to forget, she's like,
yeah. I've always loved to read that, Padme has been a queen since she was, 13, 14? Everyone around her for her entire life. And before then, she was still involved in politics. She has met people who are constantly guarded. They always have their walls up. They choose every word very carefully. And then suddenly she meets this person who wears his heart on his sleeve, who feels passionately and speaks openly and honestly and has, as far as he's concerned, nothing to hide.
And he's hot.
And also very hot. That's a big win. And I think that, Padme just kind of got caught up in Anakin, a hot guy who is honest and has feelings. I think there's a lot of fan fiction and teen drama that would back up that, a lot of 20-something-year-old girls would be into that.
Honestly, if I were to venture into possibly being in Padme's head, I would have fallen for Obi-Wan more than Anakin.
Daddy Wan was right there. That's for sure.
Everyone else in the galaxy did. Obi-Wan had what? Tahiri in the temple. There's Satine on Mandalore. There was another Jedi.
He had the whisker pinch.
No. Let's face it though. I think that would have happened were they not separated for the entirety of that movie.
True, actually. If she had gone with Obi-Wan instead of Anakin, I think Padme would have fallen for either one of them.
Would have been a very different movie. And in that case, Anakin would have fallen to the dark side. You did this. You took her from me.
She did that herself.
I can't help it, Anakin. My riz is unlimited.
How old was Obi-Wan comparatively?
He was pretty old. He was 25 in TPM, so that would put him at 35 in Clones.
That's not that bad.
It's not. I think he's 9 years older than Padme? Because isn't she like 15? How old is she in?
She's 14 in TPM.
14?
Yeah.
Okay, so 11
Yeah,
years. That's a lot. But once they're 30,
Hey, she can go either way. If she goes to Anakin, it's
That's true. Are you the
5 years?
Are you
younger?
robbing the cradle or robbing the grave, Padme?
We actually had this friend. They actually dated my sister at one point, but he started hanging out with this girl we knew, and we were like a little concerned though, because he was 28 and she was 19, but her mom was also single, and so we were like, which is he going for the daughter? Is he going for the mother? The mom was like 40, and we're like, okay, let's see what his game is. He married the grandma.
What the heck?
He married her mom.
Woo. All right. Hey, no
She was
question.
she was 59. She was 59 years old at the time, and we were like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people were like, oh, does she have like money? No. In fact, when they got married, they moved in with her parents.
Jesus Christ.
I'm not making any of this up.
That
Wow.
just changes the dynamic of this entire episode.
Absolutely. Holy hell. That's wild.
Billy says 11-year age difference is fine. Love doesn't know age. My first boyfriend was like 20 years older than me. The discomfort comes from knowing the younger person when they were underage. I mean,
no.
I do
Listen.
20 is a lot.
Listen, I'm just going to just say this out front. As you get older, when you meet younger people, you do see them differently, or you should. So like, because I know you're still fairly young, and if you had a boyfriend that was, and I'm not trying to come down on you or anything like that, I do want you to be safe. As you get older, you will realize, what did that person see in me at this time? They may say, you're so mature for your age, or stuff like that. Don't fall for that. Be very careful. And just be safe, please.
I had a totally different approach to this.
It's probably better than mine. I just got scared because I have another close friend who had a situation, and it just got worse and worse and worse, and it was a similar deal to the point where like, he's sending stuff to his friends and like inviting them over to watch things, and like, and she doesn't know any better because she was 19 at the time. He was like 46 and had a wife and kids, and like, he was really bad.
That's the thing,
I don't think we're gonna sit here and condone like grooming or anything like that. But what I was going to say, in agreement with Illy, is that there comes a certain point in age when you're a whole ass adult. And if like, let's say you're like 27, 28, and you find a 45-year-old, don't care.
Yeah, absolutely.
But to Choco's point, when you're between 18 and like 25, it's a generational like difference. You won't share commonalities in certain spaces. I know friends that have dated like 23-year-olds, and sure, they can drink, but they don't know his favorite band. It's like, it's a generational thing. Like, is it okay? I'm not gonna judge that. The only thing I will judge is going after like high school, like that kind of age.
19.
When you are an adult, when you are a whole ass adult, you can do whatever you want. But yeah. It is a generational
and that's
thing.
like, we make jokes about Padme, but it's a 5-year gap. Even though he's 19, like, they're still in that same generation.
Yeah.
They really aren't that far apart. And especially like when conversations of grooming come into it, like, there are plenty of memes about Padme and all. I don't think I met you once 10 years ago and now we're starting dating. Like, they did not have an extended enough relationship.
Yeah, they weren't pen pals or anything. What that was is the equivalent of like, you come back from college and you're like, oh, that person, they look different now. You know what I mean? Like, I never even thought about it before. But yeah, that's
yeah. By the time of
also
Revenge, Padme's 29.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, dating or going for Obi-Wan, who is 40. That's whatever.
Oh yeah, that would be nothing.
That's daddy Wan, like Choco said.
It's always
now
half your age plus 7.
did you know originally in Raiders of the Lost Ark, she was supposed to be 15?
I do,
Say that
unfortunately.
again.
Marion was
I don't
supposed to
think
be
she was-
15, but they did end up aging her up in the movie to being like 18 or 19. But
Mhm.
yeah,
There's a lot of
originally they wrote like her being 15, and
Yeah.
that's when their relationship started. And you're like, yuck.
There's a lot of questionable
Pass.
stuff that doesn't age well. In
Yeah, and
books.
unfortunately, it was none other than George Lucas who really pushed for her to be younger.
Yeah.
George, please.
But there's a very graphic scene with the teenagers of it that they didn't
Oh yeah.
put into the movie for obvious reasons. But like
Who could guess why?
some of the stuff back then is like, what are you guys writing?
Yeah, wild times. One thing I wanted to mention that it just popped back into my head when we were talking about Anakin and Iskat being graduated to knights at the same time. It occurred to me something I've wanted to make like a TikTok about for a while. You know, people talk about Anakin and the rank of master, and I've seen some people say that like, oh, the Jedi only withheld it because like they resented Anakin, which is also wildly unfair.
Yeah.
Anakin did not even remotely deserve the rank of master. I want to hit you with a hot take, though. I don't think Anakin deserved the rank of knight. I don't think he was
didn't.
prepared to be a Jedi Knight. Yeah.
By the time of Revenge, maybe, but when he was
Maybe.
knighted, no, it was a necessity for the war. All of
It's- yeah,
all of the
you know-
people in his class were knighted early. That's
My hot take is this: anyone who refuses to blame Anakin for his own decisions, like, you can't say he deserves to be a master and he's not responsible for his own actions. Those two things cannot both be true. If you cannot be held responsible for your actions, then you need to be a Padawan, right? You shouldn't be a knight.
Louder for the people in the back. Absolutely. You know, if you're a Jedi Master, even if you're a Jedi Knight, you're in possession of yourself enough that your decisions are your own.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's why, you know, by Revenge of the Sith, you can make a fair argument that he's a knight by then, but I think he's learned a lot of bad lessons in that time that Obi-Wan's tutelage might have helped.
Is there an age gap between Han and Leia? They look about the same age to me. Yes.
Yeah.
Another very unsettling one.
I believe
Originally-
by A New Hope, Han is 40.
It's a 10 or 11 years gap, right?
I think, I'm
Leia's
pretty
19,
sure.
the same as Luke. During
Yes,
that
and
movie.
Han is 30. I do want to mention it was originally a little bit smaller in age gap because when the movie first came out, reference books and stuff put Leia a little bit older than Luke. Partially because she's so mature, but because, you know, when writing those books, they said there's no way these two are twins. That would be the most insane thing I've ever heard. So they're a little bit closer
Can you imagine
back
that conversation? Yeah, we're twins. My brother, or I was born 6 years early. I came
Just
out
a way
first,
advanced
6 years
twin.
early.
He's like, I just stayed in, you know. I was
I wasn't ready yet.
In there. Had an Xbox in there. I was good.
6 years go
No.
by. I was like, put me in, coach.
What's funny is Leia and Han's age gap is smaller than Carrie and Harrison's,
Yeah.
and they dated.
I think I was referencing Harrison Ford's age because I think he was like mid 40s.
It might be.
Something like that,
maybe
and
mid-thirties.
was married and all that stuff. Yeah.
I feel like
But-
34, 35, but yeah, it's.
By the way,
down a bit.
if anyone's into audiobooks, I highly recommend grabbing The Princess Diarist. It's fantastic. I mean, you can read it as well, but the audiobook is basically Carrie Fisher, the year before she passed, going through old journals of her that she wrote during the time period when her and Han were a thing, during the time period where they were filming Star Wars, and just talking about it, talking about those times and stuff. It's fantastic. You know, they got one story of like everyone's surprised that they didn't figure out that they were dating, and like one time Mark Hamill and Peter, they just go over to Harrison's house in the morning, and Carrie's there, and she's like, "Oh, what a coincidence! I stopped by here too." And they're like, "All right." It's pretty funny.
Shout out to Khan in the chat. What's going on, Khan? Let's see. If John Boyega would defeat Kylo Ren as a Jedi, debate. I don't know. I don't have a real frame.
What if the world was made of pudding?
I don't understand, but I don't think
if Finn were
beating a Jedi.
If Finn were a Jedi, would he defeat Kylo Ren?
This is.
You specifically said John Boyega, and so that's what that's where I was.
Well, okay, so because we don't have a frame of reference to go off of, which is how I do versus, because like whenever people are like Prime Anakin's like never reached his potential.
I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. I can deal with Prime. Full potential Anakin is nothing.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Like Prime, there's an argument to be made about like is Vader or Anakin the height of it, but full potential is like made up. So like if Finn were a Jedi, okay, well, obviously in the course of becoming a Jedi, he lost both of his arms and had them replaced with robot arms. So now he can hold 4 lightsabers like Grievous. And so I think that'll give him a real big edge in the fight.
Well, so for the purposes of this exercise, I will put Finn through Rey's journey and give him the same amount of training. And if that's the case, he doesn't defeat Kylo because Rey never defeats Kylo.
True.
I mean, Kylo has like a pretty massive head start. Yes, he makes up for it in his military training, but I also think that in some ways that could be a hindrance to him and fight in the way of natural instincts. I don't know. The VGC says Vader surpassed Anakin. That's as prime as he ever got.
No.
My hot take is that Vader is a scrub. Hear me out. Hear me out. All of the Jedi are dead already. You know what I mean? Like, imagine being an up-and-coming basketball player. Like, you are in the prime, and then everyone else in the NBA dies. And, like, you have to go around and look for D-leaguers to play against. And you're like, 100 points a game. And people are like, he's the best of all time. You're like, yeah, but he's playing against plumbers, dude. Like,
Yeah.
all the greatest Jedi were killed in the Clone Wars. I'm sorry. He went up against a Jedi Battlemaster, and he got his ass beat.
Yeah. Like, we don't even...
All
there are
the
a couple
feats
of
we
masters
see
that
Vader
are-
and all the feats we see Vader do is to lesser beings.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Sando Aqua Monster, Yoda could stop that. Like he lifts mountains. Any of the Jedi Masters on the Council could stomp. Honestly, if you put Vader against Yoda, but I know that by virtue of the narrative and how Yoda views his role in the galaxy, he wouldn't. But if you put Vader versus Yoda, Yoda is stomping Vader. Like, realistically, Palpatine says, well, this is Legends. This is Legends.
Vader doesn't have the range of motion to hit Yoda.
But in Legends, Palpatine says that Yoda would have destroyed you had he been sent instead of Obi-Wan. Because it was Obi-Wan, he had an attachment to you and couldn't finish the job. Right? But if you sent Yoda, you would have been like, he probably would have disembarked the ship and then destroyed Anakin there. It's like, I can't let you leave here.
Yoda would save Padme.
It's like, I have brought peace. Honestly.
And just random thought, but Obi-Wan is Tim Duncan.
Just off the glass all the time.
He's got all the fundamentals. There's no flash, there's no razzle dazzle.
Obi-Wan,
but he's just putting up buckets night after night for decades. You know what I mean? Like, He'll throw it off the glass. You're like, how come we not swishing it? It's
Obi-Wan
easier,
does
bro.
his just like Tim Duncan. Obi-Wan does his banking with a 24/7 institution. Never closed. Lord Goop says Seer almost folded him. I wouldn't say that Seer. I wouldn't say that Seer. Well, she was tapping into the dark side for that burst of power, but I wouldn't say Seer was a real threat to Vader. But just going off of what Choco said, all of the really, really powerful Jedi were dead. Like, we just had survivors at that point. You know, put Mace, put Yoda, put any of the, like, they would have stomped Vader.
Mm-hmm. I think they even see her, you know, she does like hold her own decently, and I think that's a good example of like, yeah, this is some random master from Clone Wars, and he can, like, it's not exactly, you know, I don't think there was a timeline where Seer wins it, but like, it's not easy for him, and I think it would have been easy for Anakin, considering how easily Anakin took out Sindralig. Seer should have been absolute child's play.
Yeah.
But again, you know, you still have this person's best day versus this person's worst day. You know what I mean? Sindralic could have like been taking a dump and like this bust in.
Just
you
like,
know what I mean? Like you don't know what was happening. It's not like they had a duel where he was
just like
prepared.
Tywin Lannister.
Yeah.
You can't see it in the holocam. He's not wearing pants.
I just don't get how Osha's lightsaber turned red so quick. It didn't turn red so quick. It turned red for a total of 40 seconds as she chokes her old master.
Yeah.
It happens over, well, I mean, it elapses over 40 seconds in the show, but that's a long time of being steeped in the dark side when you're killing your old master. Dagan Gera bleeds his in 2 seconds.
Effortless.
Vader
And
bleeds
now-
his in 2 panels, but we don't know how long those panels. See, that's the thing about comics. You don't know how long a panel it really takes place. It could have taken place in 5 seconds. Just spectacle lightning shooting out, and then
Yeah.
oh, that was
And,
difficult.
Minor spoilers, and I won't say what this is from, but I feel like you two probably both know. We've now seen a 5th instance of someone bleeding a lightsaber crystal, and it was also a very simple process. It was not challenging. It did not take long. So, like, I've gotten a lot of people saying, like, oh, it shouldn't have been so easy for Osha. If it was hard for Vader, like, it makes Vader look weak. And, like, of the 5 we've seen, Vader had by far the most difficult time. So, if anything, it shows that it's not about how strong you are, because Vader is easily the strongest of the 5 people we've seen.
But it's also canonically.
But people will choose whatever makes them the angriest, because that's
But canonically, also, Palpatine says that some crystals resist, and we can infer and reconcile with the fact that Soul, having held on to guilt for 16 years, his crystal surrendered the same way he did.
Yeah, precisely. And, you know, I think there's also an argument to be made, like, Anakin's unique stature in the Force, and to a slightly lesser degree, Ben, should play a role in the way that their crystals react to them. I think that their massively conflicted nature in the Force itself is connected to the fact that they had such a tough time, compared to Dagan Gera, who
was
schmo.
casual.
Exactly.
He was mid conversation. You know what I mean? Like
He was mid conversation, but the way his voice actor was delivering the lines, he was mid rage as well.
Oh, he's angry.
yeah,
But
he's
it's not
definitely.
There's no prophecy about Dagan Gera. Dagan Gera doesn't have any, like, world-ending stakes around him. He's just a guy who really likes Tanalore. He's got a very clear...
So he said
Also-
really quickly.
also
He
something-
says, "Ain't no way Anakin would definitely bleed his crystal." He did.
He did.
Yeah.
He just didn't do it when he was slaughtering younglings.
Oh, wait. No, he says
He-
bleed his lightsaber. Because
Oh.
I think the person means, when he's, like, slaughtering
Yeah.
the
So
younglings.
if the crystal is encased in the lightsaber, then it's not going to bleed.
Puts
You know
him
what I
in
mean? So
magnetic
that's
field.
yep. So he can't bleed it then, and also that lightsaber was blue in the New Hope, so it can't be bled. That's another part of it. Another thing that really bothers me is people act like Osha did it casually. Of all the people we see bleed their crystals, she's having the darkest moment of all of them. You know what I mean? Like people like, oh, Anakin slaughtered younglings. Anakin didn't hate the younglings.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Osha just found out that every bad thing in her life was caused by this man who then turned around and raised her and acted like a loving father who she believed and trusted in him. And at this point, she is choking the life out of him. Like she is having the most emotional turmoil of anyone we've seen bleed a lightsaber by a country mile. Like, I don't know why people act like it's easy. She was having an easy time.
He should have bled red the moment he battled with Obi-Wan. Again, the
It was in a
lightsaber.
lightsaber. It wasn't exposed.
You need some measure of contact. You can hold it in the Force, or you can hold it in your hand, but you need something. That has been consistent every time we've seen it.
That's why Degan Gera takes it out first.
Explicitly has to take it out of the lightsaber.
Because crystals are within a magnetic field to begin with to shield the user from the power of the lightsaber, right? When Souls breaks, the crystal is directly exposed and she's touching it directly. When Degan Gera does it, he takes it out and does it towards the crystal.
Also, Anakin takes it out of the lightsaber as well when he does bleed the crystal.
Yes.
Now, I saw someone say, VGC said, after my basketball analogy, he said that Vader would be LeBron James. And I say, absolutely not. So here are my three. I don't know if you're interested in basketball at all, Alex. I apologize. But
unfortunately not, but I'm here.
But, this will go to Pep. I have three candidates for what basketball player Anakin is. Okay? You ready?
James
Number
Harden.
1. Okay, so my thought is are these ones. Dwight Howard, insanely physically talented, could be amazing, won't ever practice, won't cooperate, is just a problem child. Along the same lines, my other Ron Artest, or Meta World Peace, if you will. I think that's self-explanatory. But my third pick for him, Karl Malone. He's arguably the greatest basketball player who never got a ring, and I also feel like that
he was on a championship squad too.
Yeah.
I'm doing the mastermind hands as I rack desperately for any sports references. Every scrap I've got.
Karl Malone would have did a lot better had he not have to face Jordan all the time. Poor guy.
I'm a nerd in the truest sense. I know nothing about sports. I want to offer up one of the few basketball players I can name, and one of the ones that came to mind due to quiet, disrespectful, but with the skill to back it up. Mace Windu is Larry Bird. That's my contribution.
There's some of Mace and Kobe too, though.
A little bit, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
the work ethic, the don't trash talk, or else you'll find out.
Exactly. Mace is absolutely that. I'm sorry, citizen. I
remember one of the games with Kobe. I forget who was talking trash to him, but I think it was in the first half. He was shooting pretty terribly. I think it was 30% from the field, and someone talked trash to Kobe. He was like, "You're gonna need to step it up, right?" And the second half, he dropped 40, and they won. And he was like, and I forget his exact words in the interview, but he said, "You thought,
Oh no, I think I know the interview. He said, "You had a good game."
Oh yeah.
And he's like, "This is the first half." Like, why is he saying the past tense? What does that mean?
Yeah.
I had a good game. Yeah.
The arrogance of Mr. Bryant. I mean, listen, he had that in common with Jordan too. Anytime someone trash talked Jordan, he would drop 30-40 on them. And sometimes it wasn't even like because he was having a bad game. He was just, I don't know, he's not, I don't know, not playing as well, I suppose.
Yeah.
Which isn't necessarily a bad game. But sometimes you need that trash talker, you know?
Oh yeah.
But anyways,
Let's
Mace Windu's the best.
definitely try to get us away from sports talk. I'm racking my brain. Anyone? Can I make a Jackie Robinson comparison? I know him. They gotta be the
okay. I have a question and an exercise for you guys. Considering how gimped we're currently painting Vader, out of all of the Jedi Masters that we think are capable, which one is the one that he does beat?
Which Masters does Vader beat? I think there are a couple. Because, the thing is, like, Vader is still a very capable duelist. I think that, like, half the council, Obi-Wan beats him, Windu clears the floor, but I figure you could probably take, like, Oppo Rancisis. I can't imagine he's a great battler.
I mean, he's just got this big old snake body. Like, I'm sure you can hit that. You know what I mean?
Gotta be an easy target.
I forgot my tail was over by you. Sorry.
Yeah, I got a lot.
Also, if you watch, the choreography in slow motion, Anakin swings high a lot, which means he's definitely killing Mr. Tallhead, Mr. Conehead.
Kiadi Mundi doesn't last a minute. Kiadi Mundi would say, this is... Kiadi Mundi would somehow, like, misinterpret the fact that he's fighting someone.
He definitely zero diffs Coleman Traber.
Coleman impales himself on his own lightsaber and falls. We're like, all right. So the other thing is, like, being on the Jedi Council isn't going to mean you're the best duelist. Like, you got to be capable and everything, but, like,
some of the best
should be there more for your
there.
business. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's talk about duelists versus Vader. Okay, we know Yoda stomps, we know Mace stomps. Kit Fisto. Why am I suddenly forgetting
Plo Koon?
Plo Koon, there he is. And who else was a good duelist?
I'm putting my boy Plo up above him, but
I feel like Kit. I can't think of any particular.
Depa Balaba was a duelist too.
Depa could maybe, just being trained by Mace, she's got such an edge. Did Depa ever learn Vapad?
She was a practitioner of Sarisu.
Yeah, in the expanded universe, she did, and then fell to the dark side.
That's not remembering. Yeah.
I'd
say she's still probably, it would feel weird if Mace never taught her a little bit, especially as the Clone Wars sprang up. I feel like Mace would have to teach her some, at least in theory. So I feel like she could definitely give Vader a run for his money. We know her Padawan doesn't, though, but
No.
he had a tough time.
Yeah, I mean, he dropped out of school. I mean, school dropped out of him, actually.
School got canceled.
Why do those characters die so quick? That's just George. George filming that scene, honestly. That's why we all love Revenge of the Sith novelization.
Hell yeah.
Because that
Took
fight
his time.
happens so much better than...
Yeah. If I remember correctly, like, Kit Fisto does actually hold his own against Palpatine a little bit longer than the other two, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Because it's Saisi and...
but he still gets whopped in the movie.
He does, I believe, get decapitated
He
at
gets...
certain points.
Oh!
No, but in the book, his fight lasts way longer, and it doesn't talk about how he died. Just Anakin runs in and sees his head on the table, still smiling.
Yeah.
It's dark.
Yeah.
Are there any
Now let me
sports
hit you
in
with it.
Star Wars?
Oh yeah. Got
Hut
Hutball.
ball.
There's also the Hunters of the Arena. That one's a.
Yeah, it's like professional wrestling, but
But yeah.
She did
they also have
mention
that weird robot football thing that you see on the screen in the bar in Attack of the Clones. Father racing,
Never really noticed that. Yeah, I was gonna say, how about
Ultimate
does
robot
pod
fighting?
racing- Does pod racing count? Do we categorize NASCAR as a sport?
Yeah.
absolutely.
Do we categorize NASCAR as a sport?
We'll be
Beyblades.
generous.
I mean,
But,
in a galaxy far, far away, I'm sure there's esports as well.
Oh yeah.
Can you imagine the esport? No, actually, can you imagine the card games, like whatever the Yu-Gi-Oh equivalent is, using like the Jarek technology is so badass.
Someone introduce a trading card game in Star Wars. A collectible trading card game in Star Wars would be my absolute jam. I want to mention one thing that occurred to me. Esports. Do you think they could have like? Are video games a thing in Star Wars? Like computers, the most they could handle is like Pong. So I don't know that they could do. Like, is someone playing Overwatch on Naboo? I'd be interested to see.
Isn't there a YouTube channel dedicated to showdowns between characters? Those
Oh, yeah.
those versus channels usually just compare feats, and that's not really a reliable way to go about versus.
I hate the feats and the power scaling. You're like, oh well, and one time he dodged a strike of lightning, therefore he's faster than the speed of light, and you're like, but he's not. I don't. He's not though. Or like, how fast is the Flash? Okay, I still see him get hit by regular people all of the time. So does that mean no one can hit him, or everyone can hit him? I don't know.
Yeah, the answer is always, Stan Lee put it best. Who would win in a fight? It's whoever I want to win.
Yeah.
I'll figure out how.
What Star Wars character would be their Exodia?
It would be Exodia. It would be a new figure in, and I wanted to get back to, in video games, my favorite genre that is never fulfilled in video games, I love collectible trading card games within a game that is not about collectible trading card games. So, like, do you ever play Shovel Knight?
I've heard of it.
I haven't actually played it. No.
The one campaign you can, like, fight people and take trading cards from them and build a trading card deck. Or, like, Witcher also had, you collected Gwent
Yeah.
cards as you went. I want to, like, find a chest and get a trading card from it and build up my deck. Jedi Survivor 3, please, can we get a trading card game in the Star Wars universe?
I'm not gonna lie, I spent copious amount of time just playing Sabak in Outlaws, just chilling.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been waiting for years for them to do something like
Now,
that.
I made enough.
my
to
thought
pay,
is
I made enough to pay off my bounty.
instead of Exodia, your cards are just pieces of a Rancor, like Rancor right arm, Rancor left arm.
It's, collect the different creatures of the galaxy and pit them against each other. Give me, like, honestly, I've wanted for years, like, make, like, an app where I can play Sabak online, or I can play Holo Chess against other people. Anything.
Is the Jark actually a trading card game, and we just don't know? And, like, they're actually really nerdy.
I've speculated for years, because, like, a lot of things have tried to apply rules to what was never intended to have rules, It's just a couple holograms, they pick each other and smash each other. But, like, with such a small board, people have tried to figure out, how is there any strategy to this? And the ones that they've made, the physical ones, it's kind of... it's not terrible, but it feels very simple. I have theorized for a long time that, like, yeah, you can have different pieces, different creatures that move in different ways, and that that's how you get like the edge. Is what's your lineup look like?
My theory is this, just that it is actually in-universe Pokemon, and he used seismic toss.
It's absolutely.
I want to shout out Thomas Mu Anderson, the Neo Osul, for their first time on the channel. Welcome to the channel. Hope you're having a good time.
Yeah.
Kenny says, "Who wins in a 1v1 to 11, Element or Choco? In what?"
In basketball, if we were playing
Death
one-on-one.
I mean, I know ball.
I know ball. We'll have to see.
I'll referee.
It's like I would normally say I would win, but I'm terribly out of shape currently. But I'm working on that right now, so we'll see.
We'll have a game at the next DYAD.
Yeah.
Now, which one of you would win to 11 in lightsaber dueling? Which one of you is more powerful in the Force?
Now,
Which one of you could beat Darth Vader?
I mean, listen.
I'll give it to him with a lightsaber in a lightsaber duel. I'm not winning that.
I mean, I'll probably get clobbered in a boxing match.
No.
I will say though, I did have an An-One name, but that just only says something about my handles. I think I shot like 30% from the field, but I'm also short.
Height does have a large advantage.
I can probably pull up on the perimeter on Choco a lot. That would just depend on if my shots went down. I don't know if I could. I could probably take him off the dribble, but if I tried to attack and he was on me, I'm not getting a shot off. That's an interesting experiment, to be honest.
I played ball with this coworker of mine back when I was doing at the financial company. They had a hoop out in front, and my buddy, he actually he played basketball overseas. Like that was his job. Like his dad was a basketball player, which is why he was never around. But he was black and Filipino,
Black
and he was I called him Filonegro, but he was like he was 6'6" or 6'7". And he always got mad because everyone wanted him to play like a center, but he wanted to shoot, But anyways, I tried playing ball against him, and it was the most. It was so irritating. Like, I'd pump fake him, and I would legitimately juke him. He would go this way, and then I go the other way, and he's still there. His body's moving that way, but he had such a big wingspan that he still blocks me, and I'm like, how do I shoot? I have to I mean, I do have a space hook on me, so but that's it. That's the only thing that could get a shot up on him.
Honestly, yeah, it honestly is a mismatch, to be honest, because I'm 5'7" and you're
5'11".
I mean, that's like a guard against a forward. Not even a guard. You don't have guards in the NBA at 5'7". I mean, Choco is a guard, really. But yeah,
that's what Spud Webb was, right?
Spud Webb, wasn't he 5'5"? Or was that Mugsy?
That was Muggsy Bogues. Anyway, sorry. I'm sorry we take it back to basketball. I apologize.
Iverson was 5'11" for sure. He wasn't 6 foot. Element, your shirt is fire. Thank you. It's Tales of the Empire.
Yeah.
Gotta represent the wrong side of history.
I was just talking about Tales of the Empire, bringing back the original Night Sisters from Courtship of Princess Leia a little bit.
Yeah.
Got the Mountain Clan.
Which was really cool. I do love the homage. I mean, it's still there, and there's showing himself a little bit of love. I want the Hapes consortium to become a part. I don't think the fandom is ready for it now. they'd be like, oh, they're pushing the feminist agenda because like with the Hapes, they are a matriarchy, but like it's just a different form of government, just a different style of people to include in the galaxy, which makes it really interesting. And the way they interacted with the Night Sisters, and like that was just really cool.
Yeah.
Kenny says, why don't the Jedi train traditional martial arts? Because if you look at any of the hand-to-hand combat with Jedi, they would be cooked without the Force. Not in Dara.
Yeah, it varies. Mace Windu does a lot of hand-to-hand combat, I know.
No, they all do. They all do.
Force.
There is a curriculum of martial arts in the Jedi training.
So there is the Force is like another sense. You know what I mean? Like it's not something you do. It's part of them and part of who they are, and they train it. Yeah. So to say like they wouldn't be good without the Force is kind of like me saying you wouldn't be so good at fighting without your eyes. You know what I mean? Like it's like, yeah, true, you know, but they're part of me. It's not like you turn them off. You know, it's not until the Nihil get involved that any of that type of stuff happens, and that's why they were so effective. It was such a big monkey wrench.
They still train.
But yeah, they do know hand-to-hand combat though.
Even like with Indara and Soul fighting May, like you can see that they have, you know, martial arts.
Even Vader busted out some Tai Chi. It was pretty cool.
That was using the Force.
Mm-hmm.
He did that.
And yeah, Vader or Mace Windu fist fought a whole fleet of droids in
Yes.
Tartakovsky's Clone Wars.
Oh, but as well as in Glass Abyss.
That's true.
Those
Yeah.
bodyguards.
Oh yeah, right. 'Cause he's undercover.
They were coming at him, and he I forget what he did, but he stopped them hard.
It's just absolutely slammed down on them. I loved the amount that did for like showing like Mace Windu how much he dedicates to his training, how he like runs decathlons and enters martial arts competitions just to ensure that he's always at like the top of his game.
And the fact that he does it as a way to process his emotions as well. Like I thought that was a really cool addition.
Speaking of fart choreo, the grifters complaining that the Acolyte had terrible fight scenes. I was like, are you kidding me? It has some of the best in the whole franchise.
I honestly think it is the best in the franchise. That's my number one fight.
What's ironic is the choreographer was part of the crowd that criticized the fighting of the sequels.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Cohen of 1,000 Pound Fighting lore went on to become the action choreographer for the Acolyte, and that's a good thing. That's a person that was in the field criticizing the fights, got to choreograph, and now the grifters were like, oh man, this guy, the fight sucked. It's like, how does it feel, you know?
I was gonna say, yeah, you've been undone by the beast you fed.
No, but they're some of the best. I mean,
Absolutely.
you can't beat the Stranger pulling Jedi into his saber.
Mm-hmm.
The way he fought was so reminiscent of the way Sidious fights in the Clone Wars when he's against Maul and Savage, where it's just like this feral, unnatural feeling, and you know, the choreography, while being elite, still told the story. And I think to me that's the most important thing, right? I'm story over like how difficult this thing was, but like it was both. It was all of the things. That was Manny, and it was telling the story of how he's keeping them off guard by doing moves in ways that they wouldn't expect, or things that they can't anticipate, or in breaking the rules of combat that he was formerly raised with, so that they can't fight him. I think it was, you know, it was also a little remnant of the legends from Miyamoto Musashi, when he fights the whole school of people, and but he can keep them off guard by like, making them trip into each other and keeping them in. Yeah, it was really cool.
A sequel hater went on to choreograph fighting. No,
not a hater, but
they weren't a
someone who
hater.
criticizes.
They were part of like the channels.
They
that
get
were
quoted
criticizing.
by the haters.
Yeah.
Mm.
So stuff like Corridor Digital, I think. Corridor Digital, £1,000 fighting, or £1,000, or Riven XI if you know their Naruto fan films. They would criticize the choreography in the same way Corridor Digital criticizes like the CG stuff and the VFX. And then the haters would be like, "See, we were correct," you know. And I'm not the real hater who thinks that they know fighting is Shadiversity and
Oh my
that
god.
channel,
Okay.
which they don't. He just
Well-
wears a gambeson and pretends like he's a knight.
I actually did really like the Corridor Digital short film, which was like the master or the pupil or something like that, where it is someone learning to fight with a lightsaber. Have you guys seen that one?
I haven't.
I don't think I have
And-
either.
And basically, their goal was like, we want to make a realistic version of what this would be like. And so they actually, they had their martial arts and all this stuff. And basically, the whole premise of it is the person tries to defeat his master, and it immediately gets like chopped in half and killed, and then like gets reset, like as if they have technology to bring people back, because that's the only way you can practice. Because so you're gonna die or something's gonna get chopped off. At one point, he fights like they do in the prequels and just gets immediately killed because you don't twirl in fighting. You know what I mean? And it's if you haven't seen it, you should watch it.
Mm.
I also want to bring to light something that constantly happens that is just annoying, and that's when people redo and recolor VFX and shows on their channel, and the comment section is small YouTuber does better than $1 billion company. And I'm like, you realize that the $1 billion company is the one that shot the film, got the actors, wrote the story, and did the whole show. And this person is taking that footage and basically repainting it and doing their own CG, which is great. But they didn't have to put forward the millions to produce the footage. Now, if you look at people that like making the Clone Wars deleted scenes or making new Clone Wars scenes, they look shitty, but they're pretty cool for what they do with what they have. They're remaking the Clone Wars models in Blender, and they're animating it themselves. That's the realistic nature of what a YouTuber can do with their resources.
One of the friends of the channel has been working at ILM for the past 3 years now, and that's how she got started. She was part of the project making Clone Wars stuff. It's really cool. I think that's a fantastic way for people to be passionate about learning these skills and acquiring them. It's just I'm just not a fan of when people use something like that should be beautiful to hate on something else.
Yeah.
Yes.
I will tell you the one that
re-editing
drives
the Obi-Wan
me.
show. The show exists already.
The one that drives me the most crazy though is when someone will watch like the VFX thing for like SWTOR, and they're like, better story than the sequels. And I'm like, what's the story?
There's nothing. It's just
What
a
is this?
cool
What is
fight.
the story?
That's what drives me so insane. That's the biggest reason that I push back as hard as I do against like sequel hate, is not even necessarily like I'll complain about them with anyone. I've complained about like Force Awakens here.
Yeah.
But I am so tired of everywhere I go in this franchise. I can't bring up like a scene from Return of the Jedi on YouTube, scroll down to the comments. Oh, is it going to be discussion about this movie we all love? No, it's people complaining about the dang sequels. It's everywhere. It's like a pestilence. Ugh.
All right, so we are reaching the tail end of the show. I've transitioned us to the end of the rundown. So I want to give Alex the final soapbox. If there's anything you wanna say or talk about, let us know. And chat, feel free to send us your final questions, and we can quickly. Oh, I have seen this one. And we can quickly address your questions in the chat as we wrap things up.
Oh, what it is? Have you seen Pupil? Is that what you're?
It's called To the Death.
To the Death. Okay, I'll have to look that up.
And
Yeah,
if you are you on Discord?
I am.
But you don't use it.
Discord.
Got it.
Yes, it is a very perplexing website to me.
It's like saying I'm on Facebook.
Yeah. I don't understand Facebook anymore either. It's gotten weird. Discord, it confuses and baffles me, but I've been meaning to like try to use it more, because it's everywhere. Everyone uses Discord. I'm being left behind like a dinosaur. But
I'll fax you a link.
Absolutely, send a raven.
I'll page you
with a Discord tag.
I'll page you with the letter. How do you spell Star Wars in Notepad?
Yeah. Send it over Telegram.
That's an actual app,
see.
so you didn't do anything there.
A final soapbox. I'm trying to think like how to sum up Anakin to bring it back to the main topic of this. Anakin Skywalker is an incredibly multifaceted character, and over the course of so many movies and shows, so many people have done a great job of showing a complex person who may be, and I was thinking this earlier, he might genuinely be the most commonly like misunderstood character in history, just because it's such a massive thing. You know, if someone's analyzing Holden Caulfield, they've probably got like a PhD, they're, you know, writing a report for Harvard or something. But if someone's analyzing Anakin Skywalker, they're, you know, Fart Lover 69 on Reddit. So you've got so many different takes. But at the end of the day, the core of, at least, you know, what I absolutely believe and will absolutely preach is the core of Anakin is Anakin was once, Anakin has good in him and had the potential to be a good person, but due to, you know, manipulation from Palpatine, and yes, some failings of the Jedi, and some mistakes even from like Obi-Wan himself and his teachings being misconstrued, not quite coming across the way he intended them, Anakin became the kind of person who, when the time came, would make the wrong decisions. He began to feed into a lot of his own worst tendencies, and in the end, no one is to blame but him. And he knows it. That's an important thing too, is Vader knows it was all you. You did it. You killed her. It was only you, Anakin Skywalker. And for
such a cold last night line.
Best thing ever written. For
It
20
wasn't.
years, he remembered that it was his fault.
Well,
It wasn't you who killed Anakin Skywalker.
it was me. I did. And much the same as his son, Luke Skywalker, he started believing in his own legend.
Yeah. And, you know, Luke, it's almost... Luke was, like, paralyzed by it, you know, the fact that he had to live up to that. You know, I always say Luke's core thing was that he could forgive anyone except himself. Because he was supposed to be. Because he, you know, on some level believed what everyone else believed, that he was better. And yeah, and that's why I could also talk about
was,
that.
though. I think that, and this is the final.
Oh, better
thing.
than Anakin, absolutely.
This is the final thing I will say about the Last Jedi stuff is when people say he should have learned from his mistakes, he eternally did. Mm-hmm. Like, he went from slashing at his father 7 times out of anger and rage and tapping into the dark side to igniting and then stopping himself. But then also the fear caused him to go into exile instead of fall to the dark side. Mm-hmm. So all of the failures that Luke that's attributed to Luke just caused him to make poor decisions, but he never fell to the dark side, or he never contributed to mass genocide.
key thing there. Big thing to always remember. Yeah, no genocides on his watch. And yeah,
and for me, I said before, I'll say it again. Anakin is my sister. Someone who is, my older sister, 2 years older than me, effortlessly talented, like the most talented person I've ever met. She could play basketball, she could skateboard, she could wakeboard, she was a guitar player, do rock climbing. She's easily, she's a top tier like musical producer, and as in the way her mind works, and has the easiest time talking to people and being friends with whoever she meets. That's my sister. She fell to the dark side. She got into drugs, started doing hard stuff, and right now she's homeless somewhere around. And we can't. We want to help her. We try to save her. But we can't. Here's the thing. Is it my parents' fault? Is it my fault? Are there things I could have done? Maybe, but ultimately she made her choices. We want to help her. We want to offer everything she can, but you cannot save someone who does not want to be saved. That is not possible. And, and if you look at my family, I had the same parents that she had. My little brother had the same parents that she had. We didn't turn out the same way. So even if your parent, your guardian, even if the Jedi, even if they did mistreat Anakin, he's still responsible for the choices that he makes. There's wonderful people who come from the crappiest circumstances all of the time, just like some of the worst people come from great circumstances. We make our choices. And the last thing is, regardless of how you feel about the Jedi, they honestly and truly did the best that they could for Anakin. There was no point in time where they were being evil or sly or we're just taking from him. No, they all wanted him to succeed. They all wanted him to be successful. They all want him to be happy. Maybe what they're telling him is not what he should be doing. Maybe their belief system is problematic and he would be better suited elsewhere. But here's the thing. If they acted differently, maybe they could have prevented his downfall. But that's not the same as causing it.
Yep.
absolutely.
And we don't blame the murder on the people that failed to prevent it.
Mm-hmm. It's it.
The story would be a lot different if the first time he went to Yoda, he said, "The Supreme Chancellor has been telling me Sith stories." And,
he keeps bringing up this Plagueis the Wise guy. He's tried like a dozen times to tell the story.
I'm also having unreasonable thoughts about the death of Padme, and I don't know if I can control myself.
Mm-hmm.
But he did.
I mean, Revenge of the Sith. How many times does Padme run to him and go, "You should talk to Obi-Wan. You should talk to someone," and he's like, "I don't want to hear anything about Obi-Wan anymore."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. I'm sorry.
Illy
They will drown you too.
Illy says, "I love that in George's sequel plans, Luke still failed." Yeah, I mean, if we're being honest with everyone here, willing to listen, and we're at 5,963 likes on TikTok. Get us to 6,000 before we end this episode. Would be greatly appreciated. If we're being completely honest, The Last Jedi is the only movie of the sequels that came close to George's plan.
Oh,
True.
And it's the only sequel that people seem to unreasonably hate, yet still cry out for George to come back.
that's the thing. I think if anything, that's more a sign that it's like George. Evoking those strong feelings is a very George Lucas thing.
And a lot of people will misquote and clip Mark Hamill out of context to prove this point. But that is not the first time Mark Hamill has disagreed. He disagreed with George Lucas. When the movie Return of the Jedi was first named Revenge of the Jedi, and he was reading the script, he said, I think that Luke should fall to the dark side in this movie. And it's basically the same thing as his conversation with Rian Johnson, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But he disagreed with him. George's like, yeah, no. And then he just went ahead. Same with Rian Johnson.
Yeah.
Actors are allowed
He also
to
wanted
disagree.
Luke to be shirtless, tattooed, and all buff with a mohawk, which is funny because that ended up being one of the concept arts for Anakin in the prequels. But
I was gonna say.
And I know that I know that a lot of
Mark Hamill.
I know that there's this clip that's making the rounds of a new podcast that Mark Hamill is on, where he recounts his disagreement with Rian Johnson and spells out his backstory that he made up. First of all, as tragic as that backstory is, I'm gonna be completely honest with you, it sucks. Mark Hamill's not a writer. I mean, listen, if I had walked out of the movie theater thinking that Luke Skywalker went into exile because his child killed himself because of an unattended lightsaber, I would become not my Luke, because why would he be leaving a lightsaber unattended?
Why would you leave it with the baby?
Exactly.
Rule 1 of baby: don't give them deadly weapons.
You know.
Especially considering that's literally the first thing he does when he gets handed the lightsaber. Is he like looks down the barrel? He's like, "What is this? Is there chocolate inside?"
But also the part of that interview that's not being shared enough is the fact that he says, I really hate how my words have been used to to make it seem like me and Ryan hate each other when they're best friends. He said to Ryan, I disagree with this, but I'm going to do my best to bring your vision to success. You know,
Which he did.
That's called acting.
Yes.
Also, that I think that might have been his best acting role. Like just in
I was gonna
general.
I might make the distinction. I tend to clarify physical acting because I may put like fantastic Joker, Ozai, but in live action, easily his best role certainly is Luke. Mark Hamill brings the heat in that movie, and in my opinion, he's a big part of why it works.
Yeah.
I might have had a tougher time believing Luke would do this if I wasn't watching the best Luke I've ever seen deliver it. But yeah, so many people fans too, when describing like what they would have had Luke do that went and caused him to go into exile. So many people switch it out for like, oh, just Luke made a whoopsie. You know, like Luke just was looking the wrong direction. You know, he let his baby die, or I saw someone saying that like, oh, Luke just didn't know that the Hosnian system exploded. Like he's connected to the Force, but he just missed it. Like, so Luke just goofed up. Like Luke is just to me, like that's just such a boring answer.
They're trading a spiritual lapse in judgment and just an overall. I'm trying to find the word.
It's a profoundly traumatic moment to grow and change from.
Versus
that would really rock the core of a person.
Yeah.
Versus oopsie, I made a mistake.
I'm sorry, guys. I was doing some Jedi stuff. There were these really cool books on this island, and I wasn't looking, and Han's dead.
And if we're gonna paint Luke as the preeminent Jedi of what a Jedi should be, Jedi's weapon deserves respect. They're always carrying that weapon. It is not on the ground somewhere rolling around for a baby to get and accidentally ignite. So that would be out of character for Luke still.
And the best part of all this, though, is that it's the same people that have a problem with the Jedi in the prequels who say the Jedi are at fault.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he's saying. He's like, I think that the Jedi have done more harm than good overall in the galaxy, and I'm part of that legacy. And I think the light needs to rise from somewhere better, somewhere more deserving. So I'm going to take myself out of the equation. That was his reasoning, and he's acknowledging the faults of the Jedi and saying that this is the issue. You know what I mean? And that's the point. He's agreeing with you guys.
If anything,
Luke would never do this. That's correct. He wouldn't. That's why he's so distraught that it happened. Like,
well, first of all, thank you guys so much on the TikTok side for getting us to 6155 likes. Appreciate you. We love you. But also, like, if anything, The Last Jedi is a love letter to the prequels. So if you love the prequels, you should be seeing how much respect it pays to the prequels, by addressing the hubris of the Jedi, and it's the only sequel movie that addresses the Jedi's part in their fall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've always said, the key difference between like Legends Luke and Canon Luke is Canon Luke has watched the prequels. Legends Luke had a whole different idea of what the Clone Wars were, about what happened. There was sort of a perception that like once Palpatine was gone, everything could kind of get better. But then the prequels showed like, no, there's a lot of institutional rot. There were issues with the Jedi themselves. One thing that always pops out to me is, people talk about, oh, Luke would have seen the issues with the old Jedi Order. He would have seen the issue with their non-attachment. He was going to fix all the problems with the Jedi Order that came before. But I look at it and I say, why? Why would Luke know any of that? At the end of Return of the Jedi, he doesn't say, I'm better than the Jedi that came before me. He says, I am a Jedi, like my father before me. And in the EU, it was understood that he was rebuilding the Jedi as they were. And then suddenly we saw the prequels and we learned, oh, the Jedi weren't all that great. And Luke hasn't changed a thing. He has not done a single thing differently, but suddenly people decided, well, no, I mean, he would fix all that stuff.
Right.
Like, he would just know what the issues were with this order that died 20 years before he was born and wouldn't do any of that.
In episode 4, they're described as, for 1,000 generations, the Jedi were the guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy. And then Empire Strikes Back, it's an old, lost, spiritual warrior religion that Luke is going back to this old green man to train with. In Return of the Jedi, still this romanticized entity.
Yeah. He is fully on board with what the Jedi were. And unfortunately, he hasn't yet learned the lesson that we, the audience, did by watching 3 movies, is that the Jedi had a lot of issues. And unfortunately, it seems like Luke is the one that needed to be sacrificed to finally teach someone new, like, hey, don't do that stuff. Luke is the one who learned the lesson that the Jedi failed to. And he taught it to his apprentice, and now she can carry it on into the future.
You really would have think that EU Luke would have known a lot more about the Clone Wars, considering he dated a girl from the Clone Wars by downloading her consciousness from the computer of a ship into the body of one of his friends.
I'm still making my way through the EU. Could you run that by me one more time?
Is that
There's
Callista?
some wild stuff. In
Yeah.
these books, man. Oh, Callista. I know the name. I've not gotten to her yet.
Yeah, she downloaded her consciousness into a ship. She was a Clone Wars Jedi who knew Anakin, and then he downloads her consciousness into the body of one of his friends, who I believe he trained.
Did the computer say, stop looking at me like that?
And then he dates her, and then she dumps him, and then he's sad. Luke's love life is insane.
It's about Obi-Wan. Luke gets around.
It's amazing. Luke and like we all like Lady Lumia. She started out as his ex-girlfriend.
Lumia. There was Gyri, Tenelka or was it Tenelka or was it someone else on?
It was someone else on the planet. That was like, yes, you are my husband now. And he's like, I'm sorry.
And Luke was kind of like, well, maybe. Let's hang out a little bit. We'll see.
The worst thing Canon Luke has done is be like, there's this chick. She's like a rogue archaeologist, and she's kind of cute. And everyone's like, yeah, I don't think that's gonna work.
He's not interested, Luke.
Sorry, buddy. Wrong tree.
But that's a conversation for another time.
Yes.
I just want to answer these questions really quickly. Kanioye says, will we see Ryan Johnson's trilogy series? Yes, he's did a recent interview. He said he's always down to come back to Star Wars. He's just right now he's in the middle of producing his Knives Out universe and the Whodunit series.
Which, Ryan, just do that in Star Wars. I would love to see people solve mysteries in Star Wars.
Straight up, just put Benoit Blanc as is in Star Wars. He shows up on a ship on Coruscant. We'll roll with it. We'll figure it out.
Lightsaber? How does it turn on? And
Or-
Luke's
or,
like,
you know-
no, I didn't mean to leave that untended.
But make him Emmerich Kaftor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there was a Jedi guy who solves crimes. You know,
That guy.
it's there.
Yeah, absolutely. I love a detective. I want like a noir detective story on like the lower levels of Coruscant. That's one of my big
Yeah.
absolutely give me a classic, fedora and trench coat, Dame walked in the cantina with a great pair of legs.
And then Apocalypse LB finally says, while the Jedi played a part in his downfall, it was entirely Anakin's own fault. Bro was unhinged, which is the point of this episode. So thank you guys so much for joining us in this episode, rocking with us for so long. Shout out to everyone on the TikTok side for giving us over 6,000 likes. We appreciate you. We love you. And you are the best community around.
Yeah.
But that'll do it for this episode. Alex, if you want to shout out your socials and let everybody know where they can follow you, go on ahead.
I am on YouTube, Instagram. I'm also on like Blue Sky and Threads and all, but I don't use those even nearly as much. By far the most common is TikTok. Go follow me there. On all of those, I'm Alex Let's Yo as printed here. Anyone come follow for mostly Star Wars conversation, other nerd stuff too. Right now, I'm really trying to hit 10,000 followers because I can't make playlists on that godforsaken app until I hit 10,000, and it infuriates me every day. So
Please follow this guy. He's amazing.
oh, thank you so much. Any followers greatly appreciated. And thank you guys so much for having me. This has been such a good time.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on.
It's my pleasure. Literally anytime. I already talk everyone around me's ear off about Star Wars. It's nice to talk about people who are interested.
Thank you. Good night to Darth Angel. Akaniue says bye. Thomas, welcome again to the DYAD in the Force community. Illy says it's been nice to meet you, Alex. Love from the UK. Gentlemen, the live stream was absolute highlight of my week. We'll appreciate you, Illy.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Nice to
But
meet
that's
you too.
it. On to the next one.
For Light and for Life.
We are all unhinged, but not children slaughterers.
And you are all strong and wise and a far better Jedi than I could hope to be.
May the Force be with
Exactly.
you.